Okay, good morning everyone. Welcome to Byju's Exam Prep IAS. This is Sham Kagud here. Now, before I start the discussion, if there is no issue with the sound, please give me a thumbs up so that we can start the discussion now. Done. Let's start. So, we are discussing agriculture sector. In agriculture sector, we started with the concept of MSP. I hope remember that. MSP, minimum support price. MSP is basically announced by the government, that is Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs, CCEA. The Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs announces or let's say decides a MSP, minimum support price, and this is the price that is paid by the government whenever they procure the food grain from the farmer. Whenever they procure the food grain from the farmer. Now, more than 20 crops are covered under MSP, but government doesn't procure all of them. Government will procure only those crops which it actually requires. For example, I told you government needs to run food distribution programs. Government needs to ensure stability of the crops in the market or prices of the crops in the market, etc. So based on the requirement, government will procure certain food grains. Whenever government will procure, whatever price is paid by the government, that is called as minimum support price. Center, that is Union Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs will announce MSP, but state governments are also allowed to announce bonus above and over MSP. Now, after that, how MSP is decided, A2 cost, A2 plus FL, etc., we have discussed. Then the recent current affairs topic, that is, should we provide legal backing to minimum support price? If we provide legal backing, then what will be the benefit or advantage of it? And if you end up providing legal backing, then what are the disadvantages or what are the concerns related to that? Right, after that, we have discussed food subsidy bill, food subsidy concept, right? How economic cost of food grains is determined, right? What is procurement cost? What is procurement incidental? Then the distribution cost, etc. And based on that, we have also discussed how food subsidy bill over a period of time has actually increased, right? So NFSA, in addition to that, there itself we have discussed NFSA, National Food Security Act, two-thirds of the total population being covered, 75% of rural population, right? 50% of urban population. The states are given the duty of identifying the beneficiaries in respective state. We are using 2011 population, that is a concern related to that. It also has a grievance redressal mechanism. State grievance redressal officer is there. A district grievance redressal officer is there. It also promotes usage of information communication technology so that the leakages in the system will be addressed, etc. Then, in addition to this, we've also discussed the reforms that were recommended by Shanta Kumar Committee, right, related to FCI, Food Corporation of India. What did Shanta Kumar Committee basically recommend regarding a reduction in the coverage of the population? Right now, 67% is there. Committee said reduce it to 40%, but increase the allocation from 5 kgs to 7 kgs, increase the allocation. It also recommended that in any state where the state government has already developed infrastructure for procurement and distribution, Food Corporation of India should hand over these functions to state government. Any state which announces bonus over MSP, it will have an impact in the market. Prices will start increasing, etc. So the center should not procure bonus, or let's say should not procure surplus food grains from the states which are announcing bonus. In the areas where the population is more than 1 million, the center should prioritize basically cash subsidy rather than providing kind subsidy under the PDS, etc. So all those concepts we have discussed. In addition to that, we have also discussed two very important reforms related to food distribution. One is a PDS, one is a ONORC, not ODOP, one ONORC. One nation, one ration. One ration, one ration card. ONORC. That is, portability of ration card system has been introduced. In addition to that, I also gave you one more reform, Annapurti grain ATM concept, where weightage time will come down, right? Issues related to the leakages, that is, wrong weighing of the food grains, etc., will be addressed. Right? That is one more concept of introduction of technology in the agriculture sector. Then we were discussing concept of E-NAM, E-National Agriculture Market. ENAM is E-National Agriculture Market. Now, what we have discussed in ENAM, E-National Agriculture Market, basically, it's a system wherein the APMC mandis, Agriculture Produce Market Committee mandis, have been integrated into a system, that is a national agriculture, electronic national agriculture system. Right? In simple terms, rather than traders going to the mandis, rather than farmers taking their crops to different mandis now, they can simply get their crops listed in the portal. It's a website in simple terms. It's a website. The farmers will be basically listing their crops in the portal. The buyers, either from the same state, a same district, or a different state, doesn't matter. They'll start bidding for these crops based on the requirement. And once the bidding is done, prices will start increasing. Right? The one who has provided the highest bid, agreement is made between the seller and the buyer. Payment is done and the transfer of food grains is done. That's a basic idea of a e-national agriculture market. And what are the advantages? Last week, that's in the last class, Friday, we discussed advantages of ENAM. What are the advantages? One, there will be more competition now. Multiple traders can compete or start bidding on the portal. Competition will increase. When the competition will increase, what will happen to the prices of the food grains? The prices offered for the food grains automatically will start increasing. The farmers will be able to earn more and more income. Another advantage is rather than having multiple licenses, right? I hope you remember this. Rather than having multiple licenses, now the traders require only one license to participate on the ENAM. That is, on the portal, you require only one license, whether you want to purchase from a farmer who is sitting in, let's say, state X, Y, or Z, doesn't matter. Only one license is required. Compared to this earlier, multiple licenses were actually required for the traders. Right? So these are some of the advantages. But having said so, are there any issues or concerns related to ENAM? Are there any issues or concerns? First and foremost, it's a digital technology. I hope you understand, it's a digital application of certain technology. Now, how many of you think, we are starting the discussion now, how many of you think farmers will be happy with this kind of a technology? How many of you think that farmers can understand this kind of a technology? Right? That is basically the farmers are yet to adopt this kind of a technology. Why? Simple reason. A large chunk of farmers, or let's say some of the farmers, before you start arguing, sir, you're right, you're basically accusing them, etc. A large chunk of farmers are illiterate, right? They do not have sufficient literacy. And within that also, even if they have literacy, they do not have digital literacy. You require digital literacy. You need to understand how the portal operates. You need to understand how traders from different states are bidding, etc., etc. So all the farmers are yet to adopt this kind of a system. As per Government of India's documents, around 1.6 to 1.7 crore farmers are registered on it. But basically, it requires more and more farmers to start adopting this kind of a technology. That is one concern. Second concern, one of the very important objectives of the ENAM, now the very important things that we wanted to achieve was, we wanted to promote interstate transactions. I'll repeat the statement. One of the very important objectives of promoting ENAM is to achieve more and more interstate transactions. That is, let's say the trader is sitting in state X, farmer is from state Y. So we wanted to promote the transactions between these kind of, right, let's say stakeholders in the market. Because until now, what was the problem? Imagine you are a trader, you are in the state 1, the farmer wants to sell in a mandi which is there in state 2. Can you buy sitting in your home? Can you buy these crops sitting in your office? No. You will have to cross the border, go to state 2, get a license for trading in the state 2, and start participating in the mandi in the state 2. That was one of the concerns related to APMC functioning. Now what we have done, the issue of multiple licenses has been addressed. You don't require multiple licenses. Can you remain in your own state and still bid on the crop in the other state? Of course, yes. With this, what we expect is more and more interstate transactions. That is, the farmer should be from one state, buyer should be from a different state. But even today, most of the transactions which are done on eNAM are intrastate. Most of the transactions which are conducted on the eNAM are intrastate. Intrastate means within the same state. Right? We need to promote more and more interstate transactions so that competition automatically will increase. Right? Basically, more and more participants will be there in the system. Third one, infrastructure problems. Even today, infrastructure is a problem for the implementation of eNAM. Sir, how infrastructure is a problem? Right? Have a look at this. You're a farmer. You want to take your crops to the APMC mandi. Now, rather than selling in the local market, that is in the mandi, you want to sell it in the eNAM, that is in the portal. Now, don't you think you require soil testing facilities in the APMC market? You require quality certificates for listing of the crops. You require packaging facility. You require sorting and grading facility. Now, is all of these facilities available in the APMC market? No. Lot of the APMC mandis do not have sufficient infrastructure. So, because of this lack of infrastructure also, right, there is a problem in terms of promotion of e-national agriculture market. Right. So, these are some of the issues which is plaguing the implementation of eNAM. Okay. Next one, technology application. Application of technologies in the agriculture sector. Application of technology in the agriculture sector. Now, first concept of eNAM, just now we have discussed this. Concept of eNAM, is it not an application of technology in the agriculture sector? Let me know. And answer is yes, by the way. Answer is yes, application of technology. Second one nation, one ration card. Is it an application of technology in agriculture sector? Can I also write Annapurti Grain ATM? Annapurti Grain ATM. Application of technology, again related to agriculture sector. So one we have discussed, two we have discussed. Let's start with the remaining types or some of the other technologies that you can use, and I'm taking most of them from the current affairs. So some of these technologies which are there in the agriculture sector, how it will help, etc., etc. Let's try and understand it. One is silos for storage, drone usage in agriculture sector, nano urea, right? Very, very famous now. Nano urea is very, very famous. Nano DAP, nano urea, nano copper, nano zinc, etc. And one more technology which has been proposed but yet to be implemented is the concept of agriculture stack. Now let's start with some of these technologies. One is nano urea. Now what is this nano urea? Nano urea is basically liquid urea. Nano urea is nothing but liquid urea. Now, if you type urea, don't do it now, later after the class. Simply type physical urea, or let's say solid urea. What you will see is a picture of grains, right? I hope you understand. Picture of grains. You will see picture is like, let's say, sugar crystals. Right? You will see urea just like sugar crystals, right? So small sugar crystal like structure is there for urea. Now, basically, that is the urea that I'm talking about. Traditionally, that is used. And we have discussed this. Most of this urea that is consumed, we will import, or a large chunk of it, we will import. Subsidy for urea is very high, etc., etc. And there are certain, let's say, issues related to overuse of urea as well. That is nitrogen. Now, one way to resolve this particular issue that Government of India right now is promoting is concept of nanotechnology or nano urea. And please understand the nano concept is not applicable to urea. We have nano DAP now. Very recently proposed the IFCO, right? The same company, IFCO has been allowed to produce a nano DAP in India. Same cooperative. IFCO is basically a cooperative. Have a look at this. Same cooperative also has a nano zinc, nano copper, etc. Now, what is this idea for nano urea? Right now, we have a solid urea, right, or a crystalline urea that is used for cultivation in agriculture sector. But the problem is we are import dependent. Market prices, actual prices of urea is higher. Subsidy for the government is very, very large. and there is a issue related to usage, or let's say abuse, more and more usage of urea, which is causing certain problems. How do you address it? Government says we will promote a technology now, that is nano urea. What is nano urea? I've already written here. It is a liquid urea. That is, if you basically just check it, it is available in the liquid form in the bottle. Just imagine Bisleri 500 ml bottle. All of you have used Bisleri 500 ml bottle. Some will say, no, sir, I've never seen a Bisleri 500 half a liter bottle. Any other liquid of half a liter. So half a liter bottle is available in the market in liquid form. In liquid form, that is called as nano urea. The first nano urea in the global market has been developed by IFCO, Indian Farmers Fertilizer Cooperative Limited. Now, what is the advantage of this nano urea? How this is going to change the usage of the traditional or physical or a solid urea, which is very much dependent upon in the agriculture sector. One, please understand this. Right now, the farmers will purchase 45 kgs of bags of urea. Generally, the bags of urea are present in 45 kgs. And the reason is simple. If you look at other fertilizers, generally the bags are weighing 50 kgs. I hope you understand. Other fertilizers, generally the weight of the bag is 50 kgs. Whereas urea, you will see it is a bag of 45 kgs. The reason that Government of India says is, right, and again, look at the logic behind that. Most of the farmers do not look at urea in terms of kgs, but they purchase in terms of bags. I'll repeat it. If I'm a farmer, I'll go to the shop and purchase urea not in terms of kgs. I'll simply say, I want 2 bags of urea. I want 3 bags of urea. I want 4 bags of urea. Now, rather than giving a traditional weight of 50 kgs per bag, I will reduce the weightage. In a bag, I'll reduce the weight to 45 kgs. Now, is it okay? Compared to earlier system, when the weightage is reduced to 45 kgs, if I purchase 3 bags of urea, government has actually reduced the consumption of urea by 15 kgs. Let me know. Simple CSAT calculation. Rather than having a traditional weightage of 50 kgs, if I reduce it to 45 kgs per bag, I will go to the shop and I'll still continue to purchase 3 bags of urea. Right. So what has the Government of India done? Government of India effectively has reduced the consumption of urea by 15 kgs. 5 into 3, 15 kgs. So remember this. Urea bags are generally available in a weight of 45 kgs. This is the logic behind that. Now 45 kg bag of urea is there. Instead of 45 kgs a bag of urea, one bottle of nano urea, one bottle of 500 ml nano urea will be sufficient. So look at the argument of IFCO here. Rather than using 45 kgs bag of urea, you can simply replace that with one bottle, half a liter bottle of nano urea or liquid urea. First point, will the cost of transportation come down or not? Let me know. Will the cost of transportation because of this come down or not? And what about the cost of storage? What about cost of the storage here? Cost of the storage will also automatically come down. Point number 2. Point number 3, whenever you apply urea, it's basically a chemical. Chemical has to be absorbed. Any problem with this? Let me know. Urea is nothing but a chemical. You will apply urea and it has to be absorbed by the plant and grow. Now, IFCO claims that effectiveness of nano urea in terms of absorption, effectiveness of nano urea is much higher compared to traditional urea. I'll repeat the statement here again. How much can be absorbed? The efficiency of absorption of nano urea is much higher than, right, the traditional urea. Now, if you apply nano urea, nitrogen is more absorbed by the plant in case of nano urea. Can I say productivity will be higher in case of a nano compared to traditional urea? Right, I'm giving you a very important point. Absorption is much better, efficiency is much better. So the absorption will lead to higher productivity. Productivity under nano will be better than traditional. That is one more very important, let's say, benefit of nano urea. Fourth one, if I produce a nano urea in the domestic market itself, IFFCO is present in India. If I produce a nano urea in the domestic market, tell me what will happen. What will happen to import dependency? I hope you understand. What will happen to import dependency on urea? Import dependency will come down. Right now, as per government documents, nano urea will cost somewhere around 240 rupees. Don't mug up exact number. Somewhere around 240 rupees. Whereas a bag of 45 kgs urea will cost you around somewhere around 260 to 270 rupees. And right, understand this point here. This nano urea government doesn't provide subsidy here. Government is not providing subsidy. It is already much cheaper. Don't you think farmers can basically shift from traditional urea to nano urea? So again, it is an advantage for the government of India. Right? I hope you understand. It is an advantage for the government of India. Subsidy burden on this urea will automatically come down. Right? So these are certain very important points regarding nano urea. Already we are promoting this kind of a nano urea consumption in some of the states such as Gujarat. But even then, looking at all of this, right, have a look at this. Looking at all of this, some of you look at it and say, wonderful. Nano urea has lot of advantages compared to traditional urea. But you will basically realize that in some time, right, basically let's say after 2 months or 3 months, there will be one article, one or the other article in newspaper which says, let's say adoption of nano urea is comparatively lesser in India. I hope you understand. Right? Wonderful technology. If you look at all of this, you will realize, okay, all of them are very good advantages, both for the government as well as for the farmer. But even then, adoption of this technology is lagging behind. It is very slow in India. The main reason is said to be, look at this very carefully, most of the farmers are small and marginal in India. Most of the farmers are small and marginal. Do you remember the data? As per agriculture census, around 86% of the farming is small and marginal. Now, how many of you think that they can understand this kind of a technology? Let me know. How many of you think that they can understand this kind of a technology? Right? You will see the farmer very, very aware about what is nanotechnology. Right? What are nanoparticles? How the absorption will work out, etc., etc. In fact, many of you do not know how nanotechnology works, and you are graduates, and you are expecting the farmers to understand this kind of a technology. But can we live it like that? Can we simply live it like that? Absolutely no. That's the reason government of India is promoting lot of campaigning, lot of advertisements are being done now. Government is providing lot of ads, even in, let's say, radios, etc., etc. Trainings are being provided for the farmers in rural part of India. Government of India is doing it, but again, it will take certain time. That's one concern. Second concern, you are talking about liquid urea. I hope you understand. You are talking about liquid, right? When you apply liquid urea, you'll not simply open the bottle and pour it over the plant. I hope you understand it. Right? You will not simply open the bottle and start pouring the liquid over the plant like this. No, it doesn't work out like that. You will have to have a sprayer. You will have to have a particular, right, equipment for that. Now, problem is this. If the farmer wants to adopt or shift to this nano urea, first they will have to purchase that equipment. Basically, it's a pump, right? They will wear it behind like this and they'll keep on pumping and apply the fertilizer. Now the question is, they will have to spend money. And look at this, most of the farmers in case of India are small and marginal. They do not have sufficient amount of money to purchase seeds. You want them to spend money and purchase an equipment to apply nano urea. That is a precise reason why adoption is lagging behind. Adoption is slower of nanotechnology in the Indian market. Done. So this is one application of technology. Important. Remember this. Remember, it will keep on appearing very often in the newspaper. Okay. Next, silos concept in the storage or warehousing. Now, before I start discussing, can you see the picture here? Just above my head, in the picture that you're able to see in the laptop or mobile, whatever it is, just above my head, there is a picture here. Now have a look at the picture. Is it okay if I say these kind of storage facilities are not traditionally used in India? The traditional storage facilities in case of India are basically large buildings. Large buildings are there, and inside that they'll basically start storing the food grains. Now, in case of Western markets, this technology is very famous. In Western markets, agriculture developed countries. Sir, any example of agriculture developed countries? European countries, right? USA, etc. In those countries, they use a large storage facilities which are famously referred to as silos, right? In those countries, agriculturally developed countries, they use a large storage facility which is technically called as a silo. What is a silo? Have a look at this. These are very, very large structures. These are very large structures which are used for storage, for the purposes of storage. Sir, what is the advantage of it? Why do they opt for this kind of a storage? Reasons are very simple here. One, if you have a large container like this, have a look at this, right? These are very, very large containers. Is it okay if I say you will use a lot of technology to either submit the crops, that is basically keep the crops, or withdraw the crops? Any problem here? You will be using a lot of technology, or adoption of technology will be better in order to store the crops as well as withdrawal of the crops whenever the containers are very large like this. And against this, look at the Indian scenario. Against this, look at India. In case of India, traditionally, we are dependent on human labor. I hope you understand. We are dependent on human labor. A lot of human labor is used to keep the food grains within the warehouse and right, to take out the food grains from the warehouse. Right. So usage of technology is predominant in silos. Usage of human labor is predominant in traditional warehouses. Second one, because these are very, very large, storage space is very large. Can I say cost of operations? Cost of operations will be lower in case of silos. Let me know. Cost of operations in silos will automatically go down because these are very, very large, right? Whereas in case of India, comparatively, these are of smaller size. Human labor usage is very high. We'll use the term labor intensive. Human labor usage is very high. Not much usage of a technology. Cost of operations would be higher. Now, what is the impact of all of this? Impact is simple. If I go to a warehouse, store food grains, I will have to pay certain charges. Simple logic. I'll go to a warehouse, I'll keep the food grains in the warehouse, I will have to pay certain money, charges for the warehouse storage. So the option of usage of technology, large spacing, etc., will reduce the cost of storage, will reduce the cost for the warehousing. That is, the people who are using the warehousing facility, the burden of charges on them will be lower because of the silos compared to traditional warehousing in India. Right? These are some of the very important advantages associated with silo storage in Western market compared to a traditional warehousing in case of India. And looking at all of this, Government of India now is promoting development, that is construction of more and more silos in the domestic market. For example, have a look at this. Government is promoting setting up of silos under the PPP route. What is PPP route? Public-private partnership. Public-private partnership. PPP simply stands for public-private partnership. We have not discussed PPP, right? Follow this statement carefully. In the subsequent classes, maybe 1 or 2 more classes, we'll have a detailed discussion on PPP. Have patience. We'll have a detailed discussion, not today. So there are, right, a lot of advantages associated with the silos. Size is very high. Usage of technology is very high. Cost of operation, cost of storage automatically will come down. And because these are built using certain metals like this, these can withstand lot of issues such as, let's say, earthquake is there. Traditional warehouses will crumble. These are much more resistant to these kind of vagaries of nature. Let's say hailstorm is there, right? Floods is there, right? These kind of silos can withstand these kind of events in a much better way compared to a traditional warehouse. That is the precise reason government now basically is promoting development of silos technology in the Indian market. So again, one more very important reform to promote adoption of technology in the agriculture sector. Let me go to the next one. That is agriculture drones. Agriculture drones. Now, what is this idea? Right? What is this idea of agriculture drones? All of you know what is a drone? Let me know. Right? You know the concept of drone or not? Basically, this is it's a basically application of technology. Now, there is a lot of usage of agriculture drones in the Indian context. Why? Have a look at this. Dependent on human labor in case of India, agriculture sector I'm talking about. Dependent on human labor is very high. We are basically dependent on a lot of usage of human labor in the agriculture sector. But the problem with that is simple. Let's say there is a pandemic, right? You tell me the answer. If there is a pandemic, will you be able to easily get access to workers in the agriculture fields? Let me know. If there's a pandemic, can you easily get access to human labor to work on the agriculture fields? But what if it is a sowing season? What if it is a harvesting season? Right? Don't you think very difficult to get access? So what we can do is, rather than being overly dependent on agriculture sector human labor, we can start shifting our dependency to technologies, machineries, etc. Right? So dependence on human labor will automatically come down. I'll give you one more example. Let's say you own 50 hectares of land. 50 hectares. You're a large farmer. Congrats. At 50 hectares of land. How many of you believe that on day-to-day basis, you can have a physical watch over all the 50 hectares of land? Every day, at least one, you can check what is happening in all the parts of the land that is 50 hectares. Possible? Think of it. Think of it. It's not possible. It's not possible. 50 hectares is not very small piece of land. It's very large piece of land. Right? Or even let's say 10 hectares or let's say 5 hectares. Is it possible to keep a track on what is happening in every part of the 5 hectares on day-to-day basis? It's very difficult. In that case, can we use a technology? For example, we will use a drone technology to monitor what is happening in all the parts of the land. Right? We'll simply allow the drone to fly over the land and scan or basically find out in this part, is there flooding? In this part, is there a problem of, let's say, attack by elephants? In this part, is there growth of the pesticide, pest or impact of the pest or impact of the insects, etc. etc. So argument is simple here. Adoption of drone technology will help farmers. And Government of India is actually promoting adoption of drone technology now. In the agriculture sector, government is actually promoting adoption of drone technology. That is, one, government says drones can be used to estimate crops. Drone technology can be used to estimate how much crops can be cultivated. If there's a flood in the agriculture sector, in which area flooding has happened, how much is the damage to the crop, assessment of the crop can also be conducted. Drone can also be used for the application of fertilizers. Right? Have a look at this. Application of pesticides, application of fertilizer, etc. As per Government of India's document, a drone can be utilized to spray pesticide on 1 hectare of a land. 2.5 acres is nothing but 1 hectare. On 1 hectare of a land in a 15-minute duration. Within 15 minutes, you can use a drone to apply, right, the pesticide in 1 hectare of a land. Now, rather than this, if you ask the people, that is a human labor, to do this, it will take a lot of time, as well as the consumption of, right, let's say raw material, or let's say the inputs, that is money, will also be higher here. Right? So, less reliance on labor, human labor dependency will come down. Can be used to assess yield, assess crop of the plant, stress in the field, etc. So these are some of the very important advantages associated with drone technology. But before I go forward, Looking at a lot of these technologies, some of you will jump in the sense, you'll basically think in your mind and say, sir, but usage of all of these technologies will reduce the labor in the agriculture sector. The argument is correct, right? Usage of all of these technologies, for example, you said in warehousing, labor usage is very high, so I will adopt a technology. In case of a drone technology, I will reduce the reliance, right? Human labor reliance will come down, right? Labor will also come down in the agriculture sector. Now, please understand this. Point number one. Point number one. Will it reduce certain job opportunities in the agriculture sector? Answer is yes. I hope you understand. Right? Answer is yes. Absolutely no worries regarding your point. You are right. Certain jobs will be not created. But on the other hand, can also say certain other jobs will be created because of this. Think of it, right? It's like saying like this, right? Have a look at this. I'll make a parallel here. Introduction of electric vehicles. Introduction of electric vehicles means some of the jobs will be lost. All of you will agree. Introduction of electric vehicles means some of the other jobs will be lost. But when you introduce electric vehicles, it becomes very popular. Does it also not mean certain jobs will be created here? Right? So that's a basic idea. It always doesn't mean jobs are always lost. Some jobs are created on the other side. Point number one. Point number two, how many of you think we should have more and more human labor in the agriculture sector? Let me know. How many of you actually think that we should have large number of people working in agriculture sector? Answer is no. Absolutely no. We should not have this kind of a human labor presence in the agriculture sector. Why? Lot of overhead cost. Cost of operations agriculture sector is very, very high in India. Very high. Right? Already the farmers are paying a lot of money for this A, B, C, D, E, etc. In addition to that, labor cost is also overhead for them. And some of you will ask me, sir, in that case, why most of the working population is there in agriculture sector? Reason is very simple, right? A person might have a land, but they do not have, right, let's say the documents related to that. They'll not be able to take a loan from the market, etc., etc. So they'll keep on working, they'll keep on ensuring that the house has certain amount of money to take care of day-to-day requirements. So the skilling is a problem. We'll discuss skilling. Don't worry. Skilled labor availability is a problem in India, right? Vertical movement of the farmers is a problem. What do you mean by vertical movement? Imagine you own a piece of land which is 1 hectare, right? You're a farmer. You own a piece of land 1 hectare. How many of you want to keep on cultivating only on 1 hectare? Don't you want to increase the production? Don't you want to expand your production from 1 hectare? You want to cultivate on 2 hectares. You want to cultivate on 5 hectares. You want to cultivate on 10 hectares. Assuming you want to continue in agriculture sector. Most of you will simply say, sir, why I want to continue as a farmer? I want to become IAS officer. Right? Agreed. But if you want to continue cultivation, lifelong, would you want to cultivate only on 1 hectare? No, you want to increase your earnings. You want to purchase more and more land. You want to purchase more equipment. You want to become a large farmer. You want to have a steady source of income. But the problem, one of the problem is, have a look at this. If a farmer has 1 hectare of a land, he should have proper documentation of these land. Is the logic okay with all of you? The farmer should have proper documentation of this land. Now the biggest problem in case of agriculture sector related to land is proper documents are not available for the farmers. Farmers do not have proper documents of the land. For example, imagine here is a person A. The person A has 2 kids. I hope you understand. Right? Person has 2 kids, B and C. Now A has, let's say, 10 hectare of a land. Person has 10 hectares of land. Assuming the person will love both of them equally, right? B and C, person A will love them, both of them equally. He will give 5 hectares and 5 hectares. But what if person A doesn't have a will? Let me know. What if person A doesn't have a will? Will means basically the division of assets like this. Now, don't you think B and C, both of them, either brother, sister, brother, brother, sister, sister, doesn't matter. Both of them will be at loggerheads with each other. Both of them will fight with each other, and both of them will go to court now. Both of them will simply go to court. Now tell me, who owns the land? And how many of you think the court will decide this particular case very quickly? Right? Instant justice. 2 minutes, just like 2-minute Maggie. So is it possible? No. 10 hectares of a land falls into litigation. And because it falls into litigation, if both of them are farmers, both of them cannot go to a bank, provide these documents, provide this document and take a loan from a bank. It's not possible. Bank will not give it because the land is under litigation. I hope you understand this. So one of the reasons why farmers in case of India, and understand this, can I apply the same logic to road construction in India? Let me know. Can I apply the same logic to road construction? Can I apply the same logic to, let's say, acquisition of the land for any infrastructure? Any infrastructure, right? You want to acquire 10 hectares of a land so that you want to set up manufacturing facility. What part of the land is in litigation? What if some of this particular land, it is in litigation? Will you be able to acquire the land? Even if you acquire the land, it is in litigation. Can you develop an infrastructure on this? Absolutely no. Absolutely no. Now, is it okay? Right? Can I generalize it now? Is it okay if I say that because of this, cost of development of infrastructure will go up? Let me know if you disagree. Because of this, cost of development of infrastructure will increase. Second, there is a huge delay in development of infrastructure. So this is a very, very common problem in India. It's a very, very common problem. Acquiring land is very difficult. I'll repeat my point here. Acquiring land is very difficult in India. You might think it is very easy. Absolutely no. It is very, very difficult. You don't believe me? Forget about economics. If your parents have purchased a piece of land in any part of India, ask them how much careful they were before they purchased the land. Let me know. Right? Just ask your parents how careful they were in terms of, let's say, acquiring a piece of land, purchasing a land here, there, etc. It's not easy in India. It's very, very difficult. Litigation can be there. Multiple people are claiming the ownership of the same land. Right? The land is in dispute in the court, etc., etc. It's not easy. And because the delivery of, or let's say clearing of these cases takes a very long time period. It's not short, very, very long time period. Lot of times this will become a problem in promotion of industrialization, in promotion of development of infrastructure, in promotion of farmers moving from the poverty to above poverty. Done? Okay, so this is the benefit related to agriculture drones. Has the government of India done anything to promote adoption of technology? Because agriculture drones are not cheap. I hope you understand. Agriculture drones are not cheap. These are very, very costly. And we know that most of the farmers in case of India are small and marginal. 86% of farmers cultivate on a piece of land less than 2 hectares. So what is the problem? Problem is money. Simple. Problem is money here. You want the farmers to adopt agriculture drones, but these are very costly. So what can be done in this context? Please understand this carefully. Government says they do not want the farmers to purchase the drones. I'll repeat the point here. Government says they don't expect the farmers to purchase the drones. No, that is not the objective here. Can we lease the drones? Can we simply lease out the drones? Can we provide leasing services? What do you mean by leasing services? How many of you used a leasing service, let's say in terms of a two-wheeler? That is, you have gone to a place where you don't have your own vehicle, but you will hire a two-wheeler only for one day. You will take, right, let's say a car on lease only for one day. Hiring services. Apply the same logic here. right? Imagine a private sector company is there. They have purchased a lot of the drones. Now, drones will not be sold to the farmers. They'll be given on lease, let's say for 1 day. They'll be given on lease, let's say for 2 days, so that the farmers will not be purchasing them, will be simply taking them on lease for 1 day or 2 days as per their requirement. That is basically being promoted by the government under a scheme called as Submission on Agriculture Mechanization. SMAM, Submission on Agriculture Mechanization. Under SMAM, government is providing lot of subsidies for agriculture universities, right? Self-help groups, private sector companies, etc. Subsidies will be provided for purchasing drones, and these will provide the leasing services to the farmers. That is basically the concept of promotion of agriculture drone technology in the sector. Next, a proposal of the government, agriculture stack. Proposal of the government, that is agriculture stack. Now, first and foremost, look at the term stack here. Stack means arrangement. Is it okay? Stack is nothing but arrangement. Sir, what do you mean by arrangement? All of you have played this game where you will take, let's say, 10 rupee coins or 5 rupee coins. You will keep on arranging the coins one above the other. Let me know if you disagree. Right? In childhood or even today or right now, you might be playing. Or else, sir, no, I have not played with coins. My mother and father hit me if I played with coin. Have you played with Parle-G biscuits or not? Don't write this exam in the UPSC. Have you played the same game with Parle-G biscuits or not? You'll keep one Parle-G biscuit, above that you'll keep, above that you'll keep, nicely you will arrange it. That is called as a stack. Arrangement is called as a stack. Again, just try to make it easier so that you remember in the exam. Whole idea is you should make it easier. So the argument is simple. You will arrange, and that is called as a stack collection or arrangement. Now, what is this agri stack? What is this idea for agri stack? Under agri stack, government says, I will arrange technological layers. I will keep on arranging the technology in a layer by layer like this. Just like Parle-G biscuit, or let's say coins, or even somebody said, sir, while playing carom. If you have played carom, you will know that you will arrange the black color coins like this, white color coins like this, and above that you will keep the queen, red color like this. That's a stack, by the way. I hope you understand. Right? So argument is simple. Technology is there. I'll keep on arranging the technology one over the other. And this collection of technology is called as agriculture stack or agri stack. Sir, what kind of a technology are we talking about? What is the usage of the technology? Let's start. I'll collect the data of all the farmers. One application, have a look at this. I will identify who are all the farmers in India. For every farmer, I will give unique number. Right? Follow the example. I will identify all the farmers, and for all the farmers individually, I will give one unique number. Just like Aadhaar, one unique number. Now that is one application. Next, I will also collect all the weather data for all the parts of India. I hope you understand. I'll collect all the weather data, climate data for all of India. Let's say in the next 2 days, there is going to be a rainfall in one region. One region, there is going to be a rainfall. Now let me know if this is possible or not. On one side, I know who are the farmers in this region. Second, now I know that using one more layer of technology, I know that there is going to be a rainfall in that region. Can I send, let's say, a SMS to all these farmers warning them about the rainfall? Possible? Let me know, possible or not? Right, I'll give you one more example. Same farmer layer is there. One more layer, a new type of a seed has been introduced. New type of a high yield variety seed. And this seed is basically a wheat. It's a wheat variety. Now, do you think that information should be provided to all the farmers in India? Not required. Why? All the regions in India, we don't cultivate wheat. Right? So what I can do? I can target certain farmers in certain regions or let's say states where wheat cultivation is done. I will send this information to only these farmers, saying that please check out, there is this kind of a variety of seed. Can we do the same thing in terms of tractor technology? Any kind of a technology for that matter. If there is a new type of a loan that is available for the farmers, can we target these farmers, send inputs to the farmers? Now let me know, can we use these kind of layers to target farmers, to provide these kind of services to farmers? Right? That's a whole idea of agriculture stack. It's a whole objective of agriculture stack. It's a proposal as of now. Government says, I will develop lot of technologies, arrange them in a stack, arrange them in a layer by layer, and start using these technologies to promote agriculture sector. For example, right, what are the best practices that can be followed to increase the yield in the sector? Updates on the weather, which type of a seed to purchase, what kind of fertilizer to apply, information on agriculture credit, insurance, etc. Right? Using data, applications will be built which will provide recommendations, these kind of recommendations to farmers. And already mentioned, under the agriculture stack, every farmer will have a unique ID. Every farmer will have a unique ID so that we know how many farmers are there, in which region they are cultivating, etc., etc. Right? So this is one more application of technology in the agriculture sector. Right? So we have discussed multiple applications of technology. Please be very, very careful. So far in the last 2 or 3 years, no question has come from technology, but can be asked. Can be asked in the agriculture sector. Right? I don't expect the question to come in the prelims, but again, can UPSC ask you a question in prelims based on nanotechnology? Of course, yes. Based on a nanotechnology, can they ask nano DAP, nano urea, etc.? Can they ask a question? Of course, yes. Possibility is there. Okay. Next, concept of food processing. Again, related to agriculture sector only. Concept of food processing. Now, what do you mean by food processing? Forget about economics. Please look around your table. Sir, I'm not having table, I'm sitting on the floor, etc. Don't worry. Please look around yourself. You will see a chocolate wrapper lying in front of you. You will see pack of biscuit lying in front of you. Some of you will say, no, sir, right? I'm a very health freak, right? You will see, right? Let's say a green tea bag in front of you, etc., etc. So whatever you're able to say, a milk packet, right? A packet of biscuits, etc. Whatever you're able to see, that is basically a processed food. That is basically a processed food. Now you'll ask me, sir, what do you mean by processed food? Processed food, simply have a look at this. It is a process of transforming output in the agriculture sector. Whatever output you get in the agriculture sector will transform it into items which can be sold in the market and can be stored for a longer duration. This is very important, right? What is the meaning of food processing? Anything that is an output in the agriculture sector, you will transform, convert into one more form which can be stored for a longer duration and can be sold in the market. Right? Have a look at this. There's a technical term called as a shelf life. There's a technical term called as a shelf life. What is a shelf life? Best before. I'm pretty sure all of you have seen this on the processed foods. They would have written best before or expiry date. Expiry date. Now let me know. Right? Have a look at this. You have a fruit. You have a fruit. Right? And summer season is starting now. Can I take the best example of a fruit? Mango. Mango. Summer season is starting. So mango, one of our favorite fruits. Now, how many of you think that you can consume mango, purchase, keep it in the home and consume mango after 3 months? Let me know. Anybody who says, yes, sir, I can do that, please let me know the technology. I also want to use it. Because after 3 months, you will not have mango there. Right? Nothing will be there which can resemble mango. So argument is simple. Can I say that the mango has very short shelf life? Let me know. The fruit has a very short shelf life. It remains fit for consumption for a very, very short duration. Maybe 3 days, maybe 4 days, maybe 5 days, etc. After that, is it fit for consumption? Can you consume it? No. But can I convert this mango into maza? Possible? Can I convert this mango into maza? Of course, yes. Can I convert this mango into pickles? Into pickle? Yes. Can I convert this mango into dried powder? Dried mango products are available in the market, by the way. Dried powder, etc. Now, is it possible that I will consume maza after 3 months? Of course, yes. Can I consume pickle after 2 months? Yes. Can I use this dried powder or let's say dried mango after 1 month? Answer is yes. What has happened here? What has actually happened? I've converted an output from the agriculture sector into one more form, transform it, and I've increased the shelf life of the product. I've simply increased the shelf life of the product. And can I sell it in the market now? Can I sell it in the market? Of course, yes. Right? Katrina Kaif will come. She will tell you, Taza Maza, please drink it, please purchase it, etc. etc. So, argument is simple here. Food processing means conversion, transforming the output from the agriculture sector into one more form which can be sold in the market, and the shelf life of the product will be increased. That is called as food processing. Now, what are the advantages here? What are the benefits of this? One, right, face of it, can you say that shelf life of the product will increase? The shelf life of the product will be increased. And if you're increasing the shelf life of the product, right, if you basically increase the shelf life of the product, what about wastages in the agriculture sector? What about wastages in the agriculture sector? Can I reduce the wastages? Of course, yes. Can I reduce the wastage? Can I apply the same logic to current affairs? Just let me know whether this can be given as an let's say way forward if a question will arise. What about onion prices in India? What about onion prices in India? Onion prices are not stable. In some months, onion price will be very high. In certain more months, onion prices will crash. High, low, high, low, high, low. Right, the first point. What about supply of onion? Right, how many of you think onion supply will remain always stable in the Indian economy? That is, let's say agriculture sector. Apply the logic agriculture sector. Onion supply is always stable, always the same. No. In certain seasons, onion supply is very high. In certain seasons, onion supply will come down. Point 2. Now, look at the point 3. In seasons where onion supply is very high, market prices will crash. Market prices will crash. Farmer will not be earning sufficient income. Some of this onion will be wasted because they are not going to earn sufficient income. What is the point of taking onion to the market? They will simply allow the onion to rot. Now, can we apply food processing there? Possible? Think of it. Can we apply food processing there? So, how? Onion, which is a fresh bulb, right? Remember, the onion, most of the consumption that we do, it is a fresh bulb. Fresh bulb means what? You will see onion shape like this. It is called as a fresh bulb. Most of the households in India consume fresh bulb onion. Rather than using only fresh bulb, what if slowly and steadily we shift the consumption towards dried onion? We simply shift towards consumption of dried onion. What about onion powder? Dried onion is available. Onion powder is available. Now have a look at this. In a season where production is very high, some of it we will take, we will process it. We'll simply process it. And if the adoption of this kind of a product is very high, and in case of India, it is not high. I hope you understand the problem here. Adoption of this kind of a product is not very high. In many of your households, even as I speak, you're looking at your parents where they are basically using, or let's say most of the households, mother, where they're using fresh bulb to prepare breakfast. Adoption of this is not very high. That is the precise reason. That's a precise reason. The products are slightly costlier, and many people will say it doesn't taste natural to me, right? I'm used to from childhood, from my memory, all I can imagine is a fresh bulb. How can I replace that with onion powder, etc.? Certain concerns are there, but is it possible in the future? You'll have to remember that. Is it possible that adoption increases, people will get accustomed to this kind of a product, more and more companies will start producing and selling, automatically prices will go down. So can we use this as a recommendation, right? Just can we use this as a recommendation where in a season where there is a lot of production, take some of it, process it, and supply it in the market where there is a lower supply in the market, so that supply will remain stable, prices will remain stable. Supply and prices will remain stable. Okay, anyways, so one advantage is wastages will come down. One is wastages will come down. Second one, right, have a look at this. Second one, in case of food processing, you will see a lot of investment from the companies. You will see lot of investment from the companies, right? Because you need to process the food. For example, conversion of mango into juice. Will the companies invest or not? So investment will be observed. Can I give you one more example? Your favorite example, right? Have a look at this. Potato into Lays. Potato into chips. Is there an investment in this or not? Is there an investment or not? Of course, yes. Can I give you one more example? Right, most of your right your favorites only. Right, let's say milk being converted into cheese. It is also food processing, by the way. Milk being converted into paneer, food processing again. So argument is simple. Food processing always is associated with higher investment. Higher investment, employment generation, reduction in the wastages, etc. Now, why should we promote food processing? What is the need to promote food processing? One, in case of India, household incomes have increased over a period of time. Right, the average incomes of the households have increased, and because the average incomes of the houses have increased, demand for processed foods also has increased. Does it make sense or not? Let me know. Point number one, does it make sense or not? Average incomes have increased and the demand for processed foods automatically have increased. Second, large part of the population in case of India, it is basically in the age group of 25 years, youth population, large part of the population. And one of the characteristics of this youth population is what? The demand for processed foods for this population is very high. Right, for example, you people, right, or let's say your siblings or your, right, let's say relatives who are below the age of 25 years. Don't you think the demand for processed foods, right, sir, what demand are you talking about? Maggie. Simple example, Maggie. Yes or no? Let me know. Right, you provide them with a traditional food. Let's say roti. They'll say no roti. I want Maggie. 2 minutes. Right. So argument is simple. Large part of the population is below the age of 25 years, and the preference for the processed foods is very high in this population. Third one, India has a huge output in the agriculture sector. We are one of the largest producers in large types of agriculture products. For example, take milk, one of the largest producers. Take, let's say, the cereals, largest producers. Take example of vegetables, good producer. Right? Take the example of fruits. We have a large availability of land in India. We can produce different types of agriculture products. What makes sense to you? Right? Producing all of them, wasting some of them, or processing which has export potential, which can be increased with the shelf life, sold in the domestic market also. Right? So it can be used to reduce wastages, It can be used to promote exports as well. Right? So these are some of the reasons why there is a need to promote food processing in India. And has the government of India been doing anything to promote food processing? Answer is yes. Government has been implementing lot of reforms to promote food processing. For example, I'll give you the latest reform. Earlier, in the previous classes, we have discussed a reform by the government called as PLI, Production Linked Incentive or not. Let me know. In the previous classes, we have discussed one reform by the name of PLI, Production Linked Incentive. One of the sector that is covered under PLI is food processing. Around 10,900 crore worth of incentives have been kept by the government to promote food processing sector itself. But that's the latest reform. Any other reform, right, that the government has implemented? First one is Mega Food Park. I'll start using the short form now. Mega Food Park, MFP, Mega Food Park. Now, what is this idea of a Mega Food Park? Please look at the process here. Right, as far as I'm concerned, do not by heart it. It's a very simple idea. Right, what will happen in a Mega Food Park? Before starting this, how many of you have seen a software tech park? Let me know. How many of you have seen a software tech park? Right, sir, I've heard, I've not seen. Okay, don't worry about that. If you have not seen, don't worry. I'll give you one more example. All of us seen a mall or not? Shopping mall. All of us seen a shopping mall or not? Now, what is the basic idea of a shopping mall? If you've been to a shopping mall, can I say that multiple sellers are present in the same shopping mall? Right? Multiple sellers are there in the same shopping mall. You'll go to one part of the shopping mall. One company is selling a product. You'll go to another shopping mall. Another company is selling a product. Now, what do you think is the objective there? What do you think is the advantage? Can I say that advantage will be if you have a large space, right? I'm looking at a bigger picture here. Think of it. If you have a large space, multiple companies can operate in the same space or not. If you provide a facility like this, right? Imagine you are the owner of this shopping mall. You will provide a facility. Water facility is there, parking facility is there, electricity is there, security is there. If you provide this facility, will it not facilitate operation of multiple people, right? Let's say buyers, sellers, etc. in the same area. Apply the same logic to a Mega Food Park. There are certain companies which wants to manufacture biscuits. Simple. There are companies which want to manufacture biscuits. There are companies which want to manufacture a fruit jam. There are companies which want to manufacture bread. Companies which want to manufacture cheese, right, etc. I can keep on writing hundreds of examples, but that is not relevant here. Is it okay if I say all of these manufacturers or food processors will require agriculture output? All of these will require one, agriculture output. Second, they will require storage facility. Yes or no? They'll require warehousing facility. They will require processing facilities, etc. That is the whole idea of a Mega Food Park. It's a whole idea of a Mega Food Park. Now, point number one. Mega Food Park as a concept was introduced decades ago. Back in the year 2008. I'll come back to this slide. Back in the year 2008, the government then, and basically it was the government of UPA, right? That is Mr. Manmohan Singh was the Prime Minister. So back in the year 2008, they proposed the idea of a Mega Food Park. The whole idea of a Mega Food Park was the idea of a clustering. Clustering means bringing together large number of producers like this. Clustering concept. Sir, what is the advantage of it? Right? Imagine there are three companies. What would you prefer? All the three companies having individual warehousing? All the three companies having their own logistics? All the three companies having their own processing facilities, all the three companies procuring the food grains individually. Does it make sense to you? Or else a large warehouse is constructed, all the three companies will use the same warehouse. A large processing facility is constructed, all the three companies will use the same processing facility. Which one do you think makes economic sense? Think of it. Which one, right, do you think makes economic sense to you? Right? Don't you think clustering means grouping like this always makes better economic sense? That's the reason Government of India, under the concept of mega food park, would identify certain region. It's basically a region. It is a region where the food parks will be promoted. All these companies which wants to purchase the food grain or the output in the agriculture sector, process it and either sell it in the domestic market or export it, will be promoted to set up their industries here. It's a region. Mega food park is nothing but a region. It is right identified, notified by the government as a mega food park. In this, more and more food processing companies will come, locate themselves, and they will have a common infrastructure facility like this. That is the concept of mega food park. So have a look at this. Here is a farmer producer. It could be a farmer, it could be a farmer producer organization, etc. They will sell their crop to the first point here, collection centers. From the collection centers, these will be sent to primary processing centers. And from the primary processing centers, these will be sent to mega food parks. Now here, the final processing is done. That is, let's say, conversion of fruits into, let's say, chips, or let's say jam, or a juice. Conversion of wheat into, let's say, bread or biscuit, etc. And whatever is produced here will be either sold in the domestic market or sold in the international market, that is promoted as export. This model is called as a mega food park model, mega food park scheme. Done. So this idea of a mega food park scheme was introduced back in the year 2008. Back in the year 2008. And please remember this. Right now, mega food park scheme is covered. It's a scheme. It's an initiative of the government. This scheme comes under one more scheme by the name of Pradhan Mantri Kisan Sampada Yojana. Kisan Sampada Yojana. I'll repeat it. Right, the mega food park initiative or mega food park scheme comes under one more scheme whose name is Pradhan Mantri Kisan Sampada Yojana. Right, so this is second point. Point number 3. For the development of mega food parks, financial assistance in the form of grant will be provided, which is up to 50% of the cost of the project. Right, is it okay? The government will provide financial assistance for the development of mega food park, which is up to 50% of the cost of the project, or maximum 50 crore rupees. Okay. Next, each of these mega food parks will have around 30 to 35 food processing units. Multiple companies will be setting up, right, food processing units, and the total amount of investment is expected to be more than 250 crore rupees. And we are also expecting more than 30 crore jobs to be generated under this. So far, right, 22 mega food parks are operational. Again, if you ask me, please do not by heart this. Please do not by heart this. Why? By the time you write the exam, the number will change. Number will change. I will guarantee that. So do not by heart it. Just for sake of information, I've given it. For the development of the mega food parks, the government will also promote a facilitation of credit under PSL. Private sector lending, right, loans can be provided. Right, loans can be provided under, right, for the development of mega food parks, or the units under the mega food parks. And the loans which are provided to mega food parks under PSL will be counted as a part of agriculture loans. Next, 100% foreign direct investment. Do not worry about FDI today. We'll discuss it later. Foreign direct investment is allowed in the mega food parks. 100% FDI is allowed the jobs. I'm sorry, 100% of FDI is allowed in the food processing parks like this. So these are some of the very important points regarding mega food park. There is one more point here. Mega food park functions on a model called as hub and spoke model. Hub and spoke model. Mega food park functions on a model called as hub and spoke model. Hub and spoke. Now, what is this idea of a hub and spoke model? It is basically a type of procurement and distribution channel. Procurement and distribution channel. It is basically a system which covers a type of a procurement and a distribution. Sir, what is this procurement and distribution? Now, I'll give a very simple example. I'll take the example that most of you have seen without realizing actually this is hub and spoke. All of you purchase a Hindu newspaper. I'm pretty sure most of you purchase Hindu newspaper only, or the Hindu newspaper. And some will say, sir, not Hindu, the Hindu. So most of you will purchase the Hindu. But how many of you believe that everybody in your locality purchases only Hindu? Let me know. How many of you are under the impression that everybody in your locality purchases only Hindu newspaper? No. You might purchase Hindu. Your neighbor will purchase, let's say, Dainik Bhaskar. Somebody will purchase a Times of India. Somebody will purchase a Deccan Herald, etc. But have a look at this. Do you think all the newspapers are printed by only one company? I hope you understand the point here. Right? Do you think all the newspapers are printed by only company? One company? No. Right? Can I put the same idea, right? The idea of a mega food park in the similar fashion. Have a look at this. There are different producers. Producer 1, 2, 3. That is printer 1, 2 and 3. Right? Have a look at this. All these printers will produce, or let's say print the newspaper, sell it, or let's say give it to one person in your area. Give it to one person. That is distributor. Now this distributor will have employed different people who are going from one region, or let's say one area to another area, actually distributing the newspapers. For example, let's say there is a person 1, or let's say boy 1, newspaper boy. There is a newspaper boy here. This newspaper boy will be given 50 copies of Hindu, right? 20 copies of Dainik Bhaskar, right? Let's say 30 copies of Times of India. This person will go to, or this newspaper distribution boy will go to one locality, and right, as per the household, they will distribute the newspaper. Can I do the same thing with respect to second newspaper boy here? Can we do the third newspaper boy in the same way? Now, what is happening here? Let me know. What is happening in this example? Are we not looking at procurement and distribution system? Let me know. Are we not basically looking at procurement and distribution system here? So whenever you look at a procurement distribution system where there is a central hub, this is called as a central hub, and there are a lot of spokes, right? Sir, what is this hub and spoke? Basically, let me give you one more similar example. All of you seen a two-wheeler tire? Two-wheeler, either let's say a bike or a cycle. Have you seen the tires or not? What you'll see is, in a central part, there is a solid metal, and there are a lot of, let's say, wires like this or spokes like this. What's the whole idea? The cycle tire, or let's say the bike tire, has to remain in a circular fashion. All of you will agree? Anybody who says, sir, square will also work out, rectangle tire will also work out? No, you need to have a circular design like this. But how do you ensure the tire will always remain in a circular fashion? There is a central hub which will hold these spokes and ensure there is an integrity, right? Integrity of this cycle tire or a bike tire. Again, UPSC will not ask you all of this. UPSC will not ask you all of this. But remember, there's a term called as hub and spoke model. The hub and spoke model talks about procurement and distribution system. And the mega food park will function on hub and spoke model. Right? Central hub is there. They will procure, and from there they will simply distribute. Okay, so this is one more very important reform which is being promoted by the government to promote food processing in India. Next, cold chain infrastructure. Cold chain infrastructure. Come to the last point here. Many of you will ask me, sir, what do you mean by cold chain infrastructure? Cold chain basically refers to set of activities or supply chain involving cold temperatures. At cold temperature, I'll give you examples. Have a look at this. Many of you would have gone to, let's say, a meat shop. Again, just an example. Don't write this in the exam, right? And don't worry if it is not applicable to you. Many of you have been to, let's say, a meat shop, especially new types of meat shops, where, right, the meat is already processed, kept in refrigerator. Yes or no? Many of you would have gone to, let's say, purchasing paneer, milk, but they will not keep it in the open like this. They will keep it in cold temperatures. What is the idea here? For all these examples that I gave you just now, the two examples that I gave you just now, can I say it is basically a type of infrastructure which is dealing with cold temperature? It's an infrastructure which is dealing with cold temperature, freezing temperatures. Because in the freezing temperatures, you can extend the shelf life of the product. You can simply extend the shelf life of the product. So in order to promote, right, in order to promote this kind of infrastructure, government has implemented a lot of reforms, lot of measures. For example, cold warehousing is promoted now. Cold warehousing is promoted. Lot of measures are being taken in order to promote cold chain. One of them is cold warehousing. Right, that is basically a warehouse where cold temperature, freezing temperatures are used. What about, right, let's say the reefer vehicles? What about reefer vehicles? Many of you will ask me, sir, what do you mean by reefer vehicle? Let me give a very simple example. You must have seen this. There is a truck. Imagine this is a truck. I know it doesn't look like a truck, but imagine this is a truck. Large truck is there. Wheels are there here. Right, and you will see that at the top of the truck there is AC unit, refrigeration unit. Have you seen these trucks? Trucks are there. At the top of the truck there is a refrigeration unit. Some of you are saying, no my dear, then at least get out of the home, please have a look around. Right, having a look around is also important. So I've never seen it. At least you have Google. Later type, not now, later type reefer vehicle, you will see a picture like this. So what is the use of these trucks? You want to transport, let's say, meat. You want to transport, right, let's say the other, let's say, horticulture products such as vegetables, right, green leafy vegetables, etc., etc. And so what is required is cold temperatures are required. So these kind of reefer vehicle means refrigeration unit fitted vehicles. Reefer vehicles are also required. So cold warehousing is required, right? Packaging material, packaging infrastructure is required. Reefer vehicles are required. For all of this, right, government has implemented some of the reforms. Example, have a look at this. Financial aid for setting up of integrated cold chain and preservation infrastructure facilities. Up to 10 crore rupees, right? So up to a cost of 10 crore rupees is provided. Setting up of cold chain infrastructure is also associated with reforms which are promoted, let's say the measures which are taken, subsidies which are provided by agencies such as Agriculture and Processed Food Export Development Authority, APEDA, very famous. APEDA is very famous, right? APEDA is the one authority which actually promotes the exports from India. Agriculture exports specifically. So Agricultural and Processed Food Products Export Development Authority, National Horticulture Board, NHB, National Center for Cold Chain Development, NCCD. Right? So these are some of the agencies under the government of India which are providing assistance for the development of cold infrastructure. And cold chain projects have been given infrastructure status. Cold chain projects have been given infrastructure status. Now, please hold on to this idea. We'll discuss this. Not today. When I take up road infrastructure, I will write it clearly. covered under road infrastructure. When I take up road as an infrastructure, I will tell you, what do you mean? Whenever a certain sector is given infrastructure status, what is the actual meaning of it? I'll explain that, not today. Done? Right. So these are some of the reforms that have been implemented by the government to promote cold chain infrastructure in the domestic market. Next one, PMFME. PMFME, Pradhan Mantri Formalization of Micro Food Processing Enterprises. PMFME. What is this idea of a micro enterprises? Please have a look at this. Don't worry about definition. Trust me when I say this, I will cover it. For example, now before you start typing, sir, what is that? What is this? Just give me a minute here. Just give me a minute. Okay. Come to this. Right? Many of you ask me, sir, what do you mean by micro enterprises? Come to this. In case of India, we have certain industries which are referred to as MSME. Please have a look at this right now. We have certain industries which are very famously referred to as MSMEs, micro, small, medium enterprise. The name or the expansion is given here, micro, small and medium enterprises, MSME. Now, how do we define MSME? Please have a look at the latest definition. Whatever your book says, ignore it regarding this definition. Some of the books have checked it. They have an old definition. They have a wrong criteria. Don't worry about it. This is from economic survey. Stick to this definition. How do I define what is a micro enterprise? It's an enterprise where investment in plant, machinery, etc. is up to 1 crore rupees, where the turnover means revenue. Turnover simply means revenue, where the turnover is up to 5 crore rupees. Any problem here? MSME, micro, either a service sector or a manufacturing sector, doesn't matter. In case of both of them, how do I define a micro enterprise? Where the investment in plant and machinery, that is up to 1 crore rupees, and the turnover by these enterprises is up to 5 crore rupees. What about small enterprises? Investment is more than 1 crore up to 10 crore. More than 1 up to 10. And the turnover is more than 5 crore up to 50 crore rupees. Up to 50 crore. And what about medium enterprises? Where the investment in plant and machinery is up to 50 crore and the turnover is up to 250 crore rupees. So on these two criteria, please remember this, on these two criteria, we define what is a micro, what is a small, and what is a medium enterprises. Now let me ask you a very simple question. Look at it and let me know, how many of you think micro enterprises are very competitive? Let me know. How many of you think micro enterprises are very, very competitive? Anybody says that? Let me know. How many of you think the production done by micro enterprises, the production that they do will be very large quantity, right? Lot of technology they are using, right? They can compete with foreign companies or even larger companies in India. They'll be able to generate per unit. They'll be able to generate lot of employment. All the questions answer is same. No, 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 no. And the simple reason you'll ask me, sir, how can you say no? Please look at the investment they are doing. Right? The answer is right in front of your eyes. Please look at the investment that they are doing. If your investment is up to 1 crore, can you purchase latest technology? No. If your investment is 1 crore, can you generate huge amount of output? No. Will you be able to generate large number of jobs also per unit? Again, the answer is no. So the argument is we have large number of micro enterprises. Fact is simply this. In India, we have large number of micro enterprises. But right, there is a problem with the functioning of micro enterprises. That is, in terms of scale. Scale means production quantity. They will not be very high. Again, I'm talking per unit. Don't say, sir, cumulatively. I'm not worried about cumulatively, right? Because understand this. What would you prefer? Think like an economist. What would you prefer? 100 companies producing one unit, or one company producing 100 units? I hope you understand this, because many of you will counter me saying that, but sir, I read there, right? They are producing, the account for 25% of GDP, 30% of GDP, but you're saying something else. What would you prefer? 100 companies producing one unit, or one unit producing 100 products? Obviously, second example makes much better sense, right? So argument is simple. Number of micro enterprises are very large in India, but investment is limited. Number of jobs they're able to create limited, right? Adoption of latest technology limited, competitiveness limited, export potential will also be limited. So can we address this issue? Can we address this issue which is plaguing micro enterprises? And now have a look at this. I'll go back to the earlier slide here. We are not talking about all the micro enterprises. We are talking about only those micro enterprises which are there in the food processing industry. Done? Any problem with this? We are not talking about all the micro enterprises. We are simply, in this scheme, we are talking about only those micro enterprises which are there in the food processing sector. Right? Under this PMFME, government itself says there are around 25 lakh food processing units. There are around 25 lakh food processing units, and these are not registered with the government. Problem is this: these are not registered with the government. These are not incorporated. Incorporated means these are not registered. These are unincorporated, not registered with the government, and these are micro enterprises. These are micro enterprises. And because these are micro enterprises, these will not be able to compete with the bigger companies. These will have very limited export potential, etc. So government says, I will target such micro enterprises. Target is 2 lakh micro enterprises under the scheme. The target is to provide benefit to 2 lakh micro enterprises. And how do I do that? Government has allocated 10,000 crore rupees for a duration of 5 years, starting from 2020 to 2025. Right? So reason is simple here. These are very small enterprises, micro enterprises. And what will Government of India do using this 10,000 crore rupees? Have a look at this. Government will provide training and financial support for technology upgradation. It will provide support for the upgradation of technology. How? Right? Have a look at this. Imagine you want to purchase a machinery. Right? You want to purchase a machinery, technology. Government will provide certain amount of subsidies, whether you are a new unit, whether you are going to start now, or you are looking for upgradation. Either ways, you want to set up a new unit, government will provide subsidy to you to purchase good technology. You are already there, you are producing, but you want to upgrade the technology, government will again provide assistance to you. That is basically one of the very important objectives under PMFMB. Second, will also help them in getting registered. Right? Will promote the registration process. So that again, some of you might be thinking, sir, why is the Government of India, right, wanting them to register? Why? What is the reason? My dear, look at this. Imagine you are the Prime Minister. 7:30, you are the Prime Minister. Congrats. Now you tell me you want to make a policy to promote micro enterprise. Do you want to know how many micro enterprises are there in India or not? Think of it and answer to me. You want to know how many micro enterprises are there or not? Point number 2. If micro enterprises are there, in which region they are present? You want to find it or not? Of course, answer to all of them is yes, by the way. Right? Third, you want to know, despite taking so many measures or reforms, are the exports from micro enterprises, they are increasing or not? And the fourth point, right? I hope you understand. Fourth point, don't you also want to find out whether the micro enterprises are able to sustain competition and are able to migrate to small enterprises or not? Because please understand, imagine you are one of the investor, you spent 1 crore rupees, you set up a micro enterprise. How many of you want to remain as a micro enterprise till you close the company? Let me know. How many of you simply say, sir, I've invested 1 crore. I want to remain as micro only. Is there anyone who says that? Of course, no. Don't you want to become equivalent to Infosys? I hope you understand my logic here. Don't you want to become equivalent to Tata company? Don't you want to compete with right Adani group of enterprises? Of course, yes. All I'm trying to convey to you people is you started as a micro, but you never want to remain micro. You want to migrate, mature into small. From small into medium, and from medium to large company. Right? So now Government of India should know how many are migrating like this. That is the precise reason why government promotes registration, why government promotes formalization in the sector. And finally, government will also help them to market their products and help them in organizing their supply chain. That is basically producing, marketing, transportation, warehousing, and finally selling. Right, so these are some of the very important objectives that the Government of India wants to achieve under PMFME. Next one, PLI, production linked incentive. PLI, production linked incentive. Right, under production linked incentive, Government of India set aside 10,900 crore rupees for promotion of food processing industries. And out of 14 sectors which are covered, PLI is one of them, and this will be implemented for 7 years starting from 2021 to 26 and 27. Right, and we have discussed what is this idea for PLI, how incentives are provided, etc., in the earlier class. Okay, so this is one more very important reform, PLI. Next, I believe this will be the last reform, right? Okay, Agriculture Infrastructure Fund, AIF. Agriculture Infrastructure Fund, AIF. What is this AIF? Right, under the Agriculture Infrastructure Fund, Government of India has allocated 1 lakh crore rupees. Point number one, it has allocated how much money? 1 lakh crore rupees. And the scheme will be implemented till 2032 and 33. Please make a note of this. I'm focused on this. Why? Some of the books that you might be referring, they'll say the scheme will be implemented till 2030. Till 2030. Initially it was till 2030. Government has extended the duration now. Government has extended the duration. That's a reason. Please remember this. Suddenly UPSC can ask you this. So Government of India has extended the duration of the scheme from 2030 now to 32 and 33. Right, now what is the use of the scheme? Why 1 lakh crore rupee has been provided as an outlay by the government? Government says we will allocate 1 lakh crore rupees and we are going to promote post-harvest management infrastructure. Right, post-harvest management infrastructure. What do you mean by post-harvest management infrastructure? Follow the sequence here. In agriculture sector, what is the sequence? First, you will sow the seeds, then you will harvest the crop. Any problem with this? First, you will sow the seeds, then you will harvest the crop. After the harvesting is done, you will require multiple types of infrastructure. Right, you will require multiple types of infrastructure after harvesting is done. So what kind of infrastructure? Have a look at the examples that I've given here. Sorting and grading infrastructure. Warehousing, that is a cold storage or normal warehousing infrastructure. Cold chains, processing centers, etc. So a lot of infrastructure is required after harvesting of the crop. The objective under Agriculture Infrastructure Fund is basically to promote this kind of infrastructure. Right, sir, how they will promote? Subsidies are provided. Simple. Subsidies are provided. Subsidies are provided in order to promote this kind of infrastructure by the government. That is Agriculture Infrastructure Fund. In fact, under AIF, you remember the concept of interest subvention? Let me know. Do you remember the concept of interest subvention or not? right? In fact, under AIF, on some of the projects, again, limits are there. On some of the projects, interest subvention is provided by the government. Okay, so these are certain very important reforms to promote food processing sector in the Indian market. Done. Finally, what are the challenges for food processing industry? FPI, food processing industry. Food processing industry. What are the challenges? One, most of the demand for processed foods comes from the urban market. Right, have a look at this. Most of the demand for the processed food comes from urban market, not the rural market. But you tell me, where is the most of the population of India residing? I hope you understand my statement. Most of the demand for processed foods come from the urban market. But where is the most of the population residing in India? Rural market. So if the food processing industry wants to sustain and generate a lot of profits, they will have to develop certain products which will be accepted by rural India in addition to urban India. All of you will agree with me? Urban India, people have money. People are accustomed to this lifestyle. They will keep on purchasing the processed foods. But you will have to promote the consumption of these processed foods in a rural part of India. Can I give you one example? Can I give you one example where they're trying to do this? How many of you have seen the Maggie ad? 2-minute Maggie ad where the target is a rural household? Let me know. How many of you have seen that Maggie ad where the target is a rural household? And trust me, lot of economic concepts you will be able to understand by looking at advertisements. Look at advertisements, you will be able to understand a lot of economic concepts. Can I give you one more current affairs example? If you have been watching IPL, Friday it has started, IPL, you will see one advertisement of Piramal Finance. Have you seen that? Piramal Finance. Right, there is one advertisement very famous now, Piramal Finance. Right, sir, I have not seen those ads. My dear, please at least watch TV. Right, don't become so much engrossed with UPSC preparation. Right, dedicate some time in a day, again, entirely left to you. Don't say, sir, how can you tell me that, etc., etc. Right, so there is one ad which is coming now, Pyramid Finance. Please observe it. Observe it. We'll connect it. We'll connect it. Don't worry. So have a look at this. There is one ad by Maggie where in a rural household, the child has got very good marks in the exam, test paper, and the mother will give certain amount of money, ask the child to go to the shop and bring Maggie packet. Right? So you will basically see a rural household, then the consumption of Maggie is being promoted in a rural part of India. Right? And please understand what they are trying to do with this ad. What are they trying to do with this ad? They are trying to promote the consumption of Maggie as a product even in rural part of India. Because the idea of a Maggie is more accustomed to urban lifestyle. But they are saying no. It is it is very much possible even in rural part of India, it will become a product of consumption. So again, so one, concentration of demand. Concentration of demand. Lot of the demand comes from urban part of India. And one of the reason for this is most of the processed foods, not all of them, most of the processed foods, they are developed targeting urban population. They are developed targeting urban population, right? So you need to have investment in development of the projects targeting rural population as well. Infrastructure problems, right? Let's say cold warehousing, normal warehousing, transportation, etc., etc. So infrastructure problem. Cost of transportation in case of India is higher, market prices are higher, so all the rural households will not be able to afford it. Export competitiveness will come down. Right, unorganized sector, that is those which are very small, not registered with the government, right? These let's say presence of this is very high. Presence of such units is very high in India. And finally, large number of micro and smaller units where investment is limited, turnover is limited, employment opportunities as well as export potential is limited. So these are the challenges, right, which government of India says the food processing industry is actually facing. Done. Okay, so these are some of the points I wanted to discuss regarding agriculture as well as food processing. Now, some of you said, sir, I watched the IPL match in Geo Cinema. My dear, then you are not watching correctly. Because I also watch on Geo Cinema, and the ad that I spoke about, Pyramid Finance, has come in Geo Cinema only. Whether it has come in Star Sports or not, I don't know. But don't worry, UPSC will not ask you that question. Let's start solving the questions then. Let's start solving now. Okay. Arey bhai, 35% have answered option B. Why? Please focus on this carefully. Approved. What do you mean by the term approved? Approved means decided. Approved means decided. Who is going to decide? FRP of sugarcane. Who is going to decide FRP of sugarcane? Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs. CCEA. I've told you this. Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs will decide, right, the FRP. The CACP will recommend. CACP will recommend FRP. I've written this in the slide also. In annotated slide, it is there. Please have a look at it. CACP will recommend, but it is approved or decided by Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs. Option A is the right one here. Okay, 57% have answered correctly, but it should be more. Economic cost of food grains to the Food Corporation of India is the minimum support price and bonus, if any, paid to the farmers plus. They're talking about economic cost of food grains. Did we discuss in Friday's class? Economic cost of food grains. I told you, Food Corporation of India will purchase, store, and distribute. And step by step we went. When the Food Corporation of India will procure, they will pay MSP. In fact, all of this is there in the slides. Please check it. MSP. And I said, if there is a bonus given by the state, we will count that also. Now, this is a procurement cost. This is basically a procurement cost. But is it the end of it? No, there are incidentals. For example, I told you, right, we will ask the labor to load the bags into the truck. Truck will move towards the godown, right? For mandis, we'll pay certain charges, etc. Procurement incidentals. After that, we'll put it in the warehouse, right? Then again, transport. All of this is a distribution cost. So the economic cost of food grains to the Food Corporation of India is minimum support price and bonus, if any, paid to the farmer plus procurement incidentals plus distribution cost. Option C is the right one. Option C is the right option for the question. Next one. Okay. 56% have answered correctly. Why? Right, again, why not in the sense why 56%, why not more than 56%? Consider the following statements regarding minimum support price policy of Indian government. The government of India started announcing the minimum support price in 66 67 for wheat, which was then expanded to cover many more crops in the coming years in the wake of green revolution. We have discussed the evolution of the MSP, what was the reason, what was covered in which year, etc. We have discussed all of it. It is a price at which the government will purchase the farmer's crop irrespective of market price for the crop. Second statement is also correct. Right, so 1 and 2 are correct. Right option will be option C, both 1 and 2. Okay. No, 52% have answered correctly. It should be more. Let's start. Let's start. Consider the following statements. In the case of all cereals, pulses, and oil seeds, the procurement of minimum support price is unlimited in any state or UT of India. You tell me, is the procurement unlimited? Is the procurement unlimited? Unlimited means any amount of crop they will simply procure. Right? Does it happen? No, it will never happen. It will never happen. In fact, look at the term oil seed also. Okay. In the case of cereals and pulses, the MSP is fixed in any state or UT at a level to which the market prices will never rise. Any guarantee? Let me know. Any guarantee? What will be the market price? Will it be always higher than MSP? Always lower than MSP? Or equal to MSP? Any guarantee? Absolutely no. I hope you understand. Why? Don't you think the market forces will determine what is the market price and not MSP? I'll give you a current affairs example. You tell me. If government of India decides the MSP of a particular crop, let's say wheat is 1000 rupee, Russia and the Ukraine war, will it not ensure that the wheat prices in the market in India will be more than 1000 rupees? I'll repeat the process. Let me know whether this has happened or is it possible or not, because this has happened. This has in fact happened. I said government of India has announced MSP of 1000 rupee for wheat. The war between Russia and Ukraine, will it not drive up the market prices of the wheat to above 1000 rupees? Of course, it has driven. It has actually increased the wheat prices to above 1000 rupees, and that is the precise reason exporters looked at it and started procuring and exporting wheat. Right, started procuring in India and started exporting it to international market. As a result of this, what will happen in India? For rice, wheat, what could happen in India? The market prices will further increase, causing inflation. Hasn't the government of India implemented certain policies to control it? I hope you understand. That's a precise reason. Hasn't government of India implemented certain policies to control the supply, to reduce the exports in the domestic market? Right? It makes perfect sense. Prices will never rise. Absolutely no. It can rise beyond MSP as well. So both are wrong. Right option will be option D, neither 1 nor 2. Okay. A descriptive question now. Elaborate the policy taken by the government of India to meet challenges of food processing sector. Right, food processing sector, there are challenges. What has been done by the government of India? Three-step answer. 3 points. Remember the 3 points. One is introduction by the way. Second one is main body. Third one is right, the conclusion. Now, what will be there in the introduction? Please define what is food processing. Just in 1 or 2 statements, define what is food processing. come to the challenges. This is the main body, by the way. This is the main body, right? Come to the challenges. What are the challenges faced by the food processing industry? Large number of small and micro and small manufacturers, right? Concentration of demand from urban part of India, problems with infrastructure, cost of logistics or transportation is very high, research and development of the products targeting rural demand is lesser, etc. So we have discussed a lot of these issues. Now what has been done by the government? What steps have been undertaken by the government? Right, one, Pradhan Mantri Kisan Sampada Yojana, under which we are promoting integrated cold chain, reforms I've discussed. Right, mega food park, again discussed. One district one product scheme. Come to this now. Come to this. This I have not written in the slide. It is not there in the slide. Let me discuss this. One district one product scheme. What is this one district one product scheme? In case of India, around 750 plus districts are there. Right, in India, around 750 plus districts are there. Government of India says, I will identify one product in every district. I hope you understand. I will identify one product in every district which has export potential. Which has export potential. Can I give you one example of a product which has export potential? Any product which has a GI tag. Have you heard of this? Geographic indications. Right? Any product which has a GI tag, does it have an export potential or not? Of course, yes. So the argument is simple here. Right? Argument is simple. In every district, I'll try to find out one product which has export potential. Now, I will try to promote more and more export of this to the international market. There's a problem in warehousing. I will try to address it. Right? There is a problem in terms of, let's say, getting raw materials. I will try to address it. Labor availability is a problem. I will try to address it. So every district, I will try to find out one product and I'll try to promote export of this product. Now, can I also say this is a bottom-up approach? Let me know. This is a bottom-up approach. Right? And these are very important terms. UPSC can suddenly throw this term at you. Is it a bottom-up approach? Of course, yes. Bottom-up approach means our planning is not at the national level. The planning is happening at a district level. I hope you understand the idea here. Right? Top to bottom, bottom to up. Bottom to up means what? We are not planning for whole of India. Our target is not whole of India. Our target is one district. This district, plan for this. Next district, plan for this. Right? This is basically a bottom-up approach. Please be very careful. These kind of terms can be used by UPSC. Right? Please be very careful. Bottom-up approach. Right? So one district to one product scheme has been launched by the government, and basically under this, we are trying to find out. Right? We are adopting a bottom-up approach. We are trying to find out one product in every district like this, which has export potential, and any problem with the supply chain, we will address it. We'll address it so that exports will increase. Now, I'll add one more point here. I'll add one more point. Can we use this concept of one district to one product scheme and develop district itself for export? Can we target the districts itself to promote exports? That's the whole idea. Right? Because right now what we are doing is, until now, right, have a look at this. Until now, we were not targeting districts. We were targeting, let's say, this state A, state B, state C, etc. Now, I'll give you a simple example. Let me know which is better. Right? Think of it and let me know which is better. Imagine there is a state 1. This is example 1, by the way. This is one state. In the state, let's say 20 districts are there, but all the 20 districts do not have the same potential. Right? There are certain districts which are very well developed. Right? For example, let's say if you talk about India, right? You take a state such as, let's say, Chennai. Do you think all the regions, states such as Tamil Nadu, not Chennai, Tamil Nadu. Do you think all the districts in Tamil Nadu, right, are developed? All the districts, right, are basically having the same kind of infrastructure, employment, etc.? No. Argument is simply no. Can we move on from, let's say, Tamil Nadu to Uttar Pradesh, right, Gujarat, right, let's say Punjab? You'll generally say some of the areas very well developed. What about other areas? What about other areas? Do not have sufficient infrastructure, right? Employment is not generated in all the regions. Incomes are also not getting distributed in all the regions, etc. Can we address it? That is, let's say in example 1, 20 districts are there. 2 districts are very well developed, capital of the state, etc. Infrastructure is very superior, right? The industries are located in these 2 districts, and export potential is there. Example 2, same state, 20 districts are there. In each of the districts, I'll find out one product, start export of the product or promote export of the product. Can I say under example 2, we can ensure regional development? I hope you understand. Under example 2, we can promote a regional development. Because in example 1, we are achieving export, no doubt. We are achieving export in both the cases. But in example 1, in one region, growth is very high. Other region, it is falling behind. But in the second example, by identifying one product in every district, promoting the export of that product, are we not ensuring, right, other regions are also getting developed here? Right? That's a reason, right? One district to one product scheme plays a very important role like this. We are also promoting FDI and food processing. You can also write the production linked incentive here, PLI, production linked incentive as one more reform, right, in case of food processing industries. So what should be a conclusion? Highlight why food processing industry is critical in terms of employment generation, reduction of wastage of agriculture output, right? Let's say stabilizing the supply in certain situations, etc. Right? So this is how you write a model answer. This is a model answer, by the way. Practice, you will get the hang of it. Next question. What do you mean by minimum support price? How will MSP rescue the farmers from the low income trap? First part of the question is very straightforward. What do you mean by MSP? Second part, let me explain. So 3 point, again 3, right, let's say 3 headings. Introduction, main body, and conclusion. What is introduction? Start with MSP. Start with the definition of MSP. And by now, I know you have a lot of data regarding MSP. Do not write, let's say, essay in the form of introduction. I hope you understand. Most of you do that mistake. You have a lot of data now. We'll start. You know, Government of India back in 1967 introduced, right, the concept of MSP. MSP here stands for minimum support price. You know, initially it was introduced for wheat, and you know, later it was extended for other commodities. You know. You'll keep on writing introduction. You'll make, right, let's say an essay there. Don't waste limited number of words. So what is MSP? Minimum support price has been introduced by the government. More than 20 crops are covered under this. That's it. That's it. Don't waste a number of words. Come to the main body. Right? What are the problems related to low income trap? Because there is a concept of low income trap here. Let me explain this. What is a low income trap? Here is a farmer. Here is a farmer. And by now, this should be, right, basically tattooed in your mind. Most of the farmers in India are small and marginal. How much? More than 86%. Now, if the farmer is small and marginal, what will be the investment done by the farmer? How much investment do you think the farmer will do in the agriculture sector? Do you think the farmer will be investing very high? That farmer will purchase agriculture drones, farmer will purchase tractors, multiple of them, etc., etc. No. Investment in agriculture sector will be lower. Now, if investment is lower, what about output? What about productivity and output of the farmer? obviously the productivity, output, etc. will also be lower. And if the output is lower, how much is the revenue earned by the farmer? How much is the revenue earned by the farmer? The revenue earned by the farmer will be lower. Now again come to the starting point. The farmer has a lower revenue. What about investment? Lower. What about output? Lower. What about revenue? Again lower. Can I say this is a low income trap? Let me know. Sir, what do you mean by trap? Trap is basically a jal, right? Trap is nothing but a jal. You're basically stuck up in a trap wherein your investment will be lower, income will be lower, investment will be lower, income will be lower. Is it good for a farmer? Is it good for the farmer to be in this situation? No. Is it good for agriculture? No. Is it good for Indian economy? Again, no. So what are the problems with the low income trap here? What is the problem with the low income trap? Investment is very low, right? Do you prefer a low investment in agriculture sector? What about technological adoption? What about mechanization? What about better inputs such as irrigation equipment, quality seeds, quality fertilizer? Don't you think all of them will be affected? So what are the problems of low income trap? Farmer incomes are very low. Productivity will be very low. Agriculture sector contribution to contribution to overall GDP will also be low. Right now, benefits. How MSP will provide benefits and it will help the farmer, right, basically move out of this low income trap. How it will help the farmer in breaking out of this low income trap, right? One, farmer will get, irrespective of the market prices, farmer will be guaranteed with certain amount of returns under MSP. Second, it is an insurance against the market risk, because today if the supply increases, what will happen to market prices of the crop? If there is no MSP, imagine a situation, no MSP. Every farmer is selling in the market. Supply, if it is higher, what will happen to market prices? Market prices will crash. So is the farmer not facing a risk, that is market price risk? Of course, yes. Can we provide a protection to the farmer through the policy of MSP? Is it not an insurance to the farmer through the policy of MSP? It will also provide incentives for more and more agriculture production, supply of certain products, or let's say supply of certain agriculture commodities in the market. Right, so these are some of the benefits that you can attribute to the idea of a MSP, and write conclusion based on this. Done? Okay, one more descriptive question. After this, we'll take a break. Some of you are asking for a break. After this, we'll take the break. Don't worry. What are the reformative steps taken by the government to make food grain distribution system more effective? Can I give you two examples that we have discussed just now? Two examples. Just now in the sense under agriculture. What about Annapurti food grain scheme? Annapurti ATM. Is it not a reformative step taken for making food grain distribution more effective? What about One Nation, One Ration Card? ONORC. Is it not a reformative step which has been taken by the government to make food grain distribution system much more effective? Right? So again, start with introduction. Government of India over a period of time has implemented various reforms to make public distribution system much more effective. Body. What are the reforms which have been undertaken by the government to make this possible? One, the National Food Security Act, NFSA, National Food Security Act, under which we are basically implementing targeted public distribution system, TPDS. What is this TPDS? You remember PDS. Remember PDS, right? Public distribution system. This is basically a targeted public distribution system. Sir, why is it called as targeted PDS? You tell me, under NFSA, are we providing subsidized food grains to every citizen of India? Is the statement correct? Let me know. Under NFSA, National Food Security Act, are we providing subsidized, or let's say free food grains to every citizen of India? No, statement is wrong. We are identifying certain beneficiaries. For example, I told you state government will identify the beneficiaries. So only those beneficiaries will get the food grains. Targeted public distribution system. Okay. So NFSA is being implemented. One nation, one ration card, Annapurti ATMs, and negotiable warehouse receipt system in order to stabilize the supply of food grains, distribution of the food grains. We have also implemented end-to-end computerization now. Right? End-to-end computerization simply means introduction of information technology and communications in procurement and distribution of food grains. Intervention in storage as well as procurement, right, by the government. Right? Having said so, there is a need for more reforms here. Having said so, there is a requirement of more reforms, right, such as implementation of Shanta Kumar Committee recommendations. For example, the Shanta Kumar Committee says reduce the coverage from 67% to 40% so that the subsidy burden on the government will come down. Right, subsidy burden will come down. Right, include private sector. Right, so what is the use of the private sector here? Development of warehousing capacity. We have discussed this, by the way. Development of warehousing capacity, silos. Will it not make procurement, storage, and distribution much more effective? Decentralize the procurement that we have already done. Okay, right. So these are some of the very important points that you can write to answer these kind of questions. I've given a conclusion also. Food grain distribution is very critical. Why? I'll tell you. Right. If you remember earlier, while discussing the WTO and the idea of a subsidy, I told you poverty numbers in case of India are very high. Do you remember this? The number of people who are very poor are very, very high in India. So government of India has the duty of providing food security to all of them. And right, if you have heard of this, there's a concept called as Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. There are 17 goals which are agreed to. Right? There are 17 goals. It's an international collaboration. It's not just India. Many countries have come together. Initially, we had 8 goals which are referred to as Millennium Development Goals. But we have crossed the threshold of the time period for MDG. Now we have SDG and time period is 2030. Right, so have a look at this. Under SDG 2030, there are 17 goals, again further divided, right, into 169 criteria or 169 targets. Right, one of the targets is zero hunger. One of the target we want to achieve under this is zero hunger, eradication of poverty, zero hunger, etc. So how can government of India ensure we'll be able to reach these targets? Ensure public distribution system is effective enough. Right, so these are certain important points regarding the question which has been asked here related to agriculture sector. Done? Okay, so that's it. This is the end of the discussion on this chapter. We have discussed a lot of current affairs, a lot of issues related to agriculture sector, food processing, etc. So the next chapter that I'll be taking up will be industries and services. But before that, right, let's take a break. And before that, let me take up questions from your side. How, sir? Because all APMCs all over India are linked with the ENAM portal, then how there is no interstate transaction? I said there is lesser interstate transaction. I did not say there is no interstate. I said most of the transactions which are taking place are interstate. Because again, understand this carefully. It's a new system. Although it's been right many years now, it's a new system. It will take for a certain time for the farmers, other stakeholders to adopt to this system. It will happen over a period of time. Even intrastate and interstate will increase, but it will take time. It's a new system for us. Before start bidding, is government tells government price is this amount, then bidding starts from here like process. Is this I believe you're asking me a question about APMC. My dear, please understand what is the MSP price. It is already announced by the government. I hope you understand. I've told you this even before the sowing season will start. We'll come across it now. Don't worry. Right, the Kharif season will start now. Right, just about to start in the month of right. Let's say in the coming months, monsoon will come. You will come across this. Government will announce MSP well before that. So before the sowing season itself, the government has already announced MSP. So the market already knows What is the MSP announced by the government? Difference between revenue and turnover generally they are used interchangeably, right? They are used interchangeably. But if you look at a big company, generally the idea is revenue means you have sold certain goods and you have generated. But you can generate the revenues from different sources. I hope you understand. You can generate revenues from different sources. For example, you can sell a product and generate revenue. You have a warehouse. You're a very big company. You have a warehouse. That warehouse, you have leased it, you will generate revenue on this also. So revenue basically is a bigger term. And when you add revenues from different sources, you will get the total amount of turnover. Okay, done. So any other questions? How MSP affects a trade distortion? My dear, if MSP is very high, you will cultivate more, supply more, market prices automatically will come down, our exports will increase. What is intercrop parity? Intercrop price parity simply means comparison of what is the cost of production in different crops. There are different crops which are cultivated and the cost of inputs in all the crops will change. So we'll also use a part of it to compare the different types of crops which are used for cultivation. That is intercrop price parity. Is MSP same for all the crops? You tell me, should it be same? After discussing all of this, the question is MSP same for all the crops? You tell me, one, is it the same? We have discussed all of it. And second, should it be same? Should it be same? How does it, how, in what way does it make sense? Let me know. Okay, done? Okay, let's take a break then. Let's take a break. I'll start at 8:27. I'll start again at 8:27. Okay, welcome back. Am I audible? Let me know so that we can start the next chapter now. Am I audible? Okay, let's start. So next chapter that we'll be starting will be industries and services. Now what I'll be covering under this? First we'll start with industrial policies. One of the very important industrial policies is LPG, liberalization, privatization and globalization. We'll also discuss the concept of disinvestment policy. Now before I go forward, how many of you read regarding disinvestment? One article which appeared in Hindu on Friday, I believe. Friday in Hindu newspaper. How many of you have read the article regarding disinvestment? Right, the finance minister has announced that we are finding it very difficult to reach the disinvestment target because of pandemic, right? But however, in the last couple of years, we are using CPSE ETF to sell more and more ownership in the market and generate money in the form of disinvestment. If you have not read, my recommendation, please do read that article. Next one is MSME, right? We'll cover more concepts regarding MSMEs. Then we'll discuss aggregates, that is IIP and ICI. Don't worry, long form is there in the respective slide. Then we'll discuss services, then reforms. We'll discuss certain very important reforms here. For example, I'm pretty sure you've heard of Startup India. Yes or no? Let me know in the comment section. Startup India. Have you heard of this? We'll have a detailed discussion about Startup India. Right? What is this idea of a startup? Right? Why government of India is doing this? What are the reforms, etc. We'll also discuss Make in India. Make in India initiative. Two very important reforms which have been promoted, implemented and promoted by the government. Right? Be very careful with this. Now let's start. And after this, as usual, questions. Let's start. Now this idea of industrial policies. Post-independence, government implemented a lot of industrial policies. Right? For example, Startup India is an industrial policy. Make in India is an industrial policy. But before that, right, because startup, Make in India, these are very recent reforms. Just after independence, government announced one policy for promotion of industries, that is industrial policy of 1948. 1947 independence, 1948 policy. Now, what was the important point in the industrial policy? After independence, there was a discussion. Government of India wanted to promote industries. But now the question was, which of the industries will be promoted, owned by Government of India? Which of the industries shall be promoted but owned by the private sector, where government will only regulate, where government will participate, etc., etc., etc. So that decision was provided, or that clarity was provided in the form of Industrial Policy 1948. Point number one, Industrial Policy of 1948 announced that India is a mixed economy. India is a mixed economy. What do you mean by mixed economy? Go back to the first class. Go back to the first class, right? So in the first class, I told you the idea of a mixed economy where the private sector as well as the government both are present. Both are present in the economy. Both are providing certain goods and services, producing goods and services. Right? So India adopted a model of what? Mixed economy in the first industrial policy of 1948. Now, if you say government is present, government will produce and sell goods and services. Private sector is also present, produce and sell goods and services. Now, the question was, how many sectors, or let's say how many industries will be kept under the control of the government? How many industries will be provided for the private sector to participate? That is the next point, logical point now. You say both are present. So now the question is, how many industries for the government? How many industries for the private sector? So under the industrial policy of 1948, government divided all the industries into four categories. Government divided all the industries into four categories: 1, 2, 3 and 4. In the first category, government said only the government of India will have the monopoly. What do you mean by monopoly? Single producer and supplier. Simple idea. Monopoly means single supplier. So in the first category, government said only I will be producing, only I'll be providing these goods or services in the market. For example, railways, atomic energy, arms and ammunitions. Anything to do with the defense, railways and atomic energy. Government said only I will do that. Private sector will nowhere be allowed to enter into these industries. Category 1. Category 2, we identified certain sectors where private sector is already present. Private sector is already there. But if there is a requirement of one more unit, if there is need to produce more, if there is a need to set up a new unit, shall be done only by the government. Right? More private sector entry will not be allowed. Only government is allowed to set up new units within the sector or within the industry here. That is a mixed sector. New units would be established only by government of India. Private sector is already there, but no more entry of the private sector. That the government will be setting up new units if there is a requirement. Example, coal, iron ore, etc. Third category, private sector is present, government will not be working here, government will not be producing anything in these sectors, government will regulate the sector. Government will simply regulate the sector. Right? Example, cement, cotton, sugar, etc. So government of India regulated these 18 industries. Government did not have any production done here. But government said, if it is required, I can enter here also. Because ultimately government has all the powers. Right? So government would simply regulate. Right? That is the third category. And the fourth category, anything that will not come under the category 1, category 2 and category 3 will be classified under the fourth category. Is it okay? I'll repeat it again. Category 1, only government of India. Category 2, private sector is present, but no more entry of a private sector. If it is required, government will be setting up new units. Category 3, private sector is already there. Government will not do anything here, simply regulate the sector. And category 4, all those industries which will not fall under the first, second and third category would be classified under the fourth category. Best example for this is agriculture sector. Best example for this is agriculture sector. Right? So this is how Government of India divided the industries into 4 categories, 1, 2, 3 and 4. But please understand, government also said, we will think of nationalization. Have a look at this. We'll think of nationalization. Nationalization means what? Ownership will be transferred from the private to government. I've written it here. I'll simply use an arrow mark. Ownership will be transferred from the private sector to government. So government clarified that we'll think of nationalization, but not today. In 1948, no, we will not introduce nationalization. We will try to do nationalization after 10 years. We will review. How is the private sector doing? Is there a requirement of a nationalization? We will review it after 10 years. And maybe then we'll take a decision regarding nationalization. That is the importance of industrial policy of 1948. After this, government introduced one more policy, Industries Development Regulation Act. Industries Development and Regulation Act. IDRA, Development and Regulation Act. 1951. Sir, why suddenly 1951? Why this policy was introduced? Please look at the 2 points here very carefully. Whenever you talk about policies, let's say industrial policies, connect the industrial policies with planning in India. It makes your work easier. Connect your industrial policies with planning in India. Why? Right? Remember this? We have a concept of 5-year plans. Your high school knowledge, use it here. Right? We had a concept of 5-year plans earlier. Today we do not have it, but earlier we had. But to achieve the 5-year plans, we promoted industries. So don't you think industrial policies as well as the concept of planning both are interrelated? Basic idea. It makes your work very easy. Industrial policy as well as the 5-year plans both were integrated like this, interrelated. One will have an impact on the other like this. So 1951, go back to your high school, go back to your treasury chest and imagine and tell me what happened in 1951. What happened in 1951? Why is the 1951 so important for India? First 5-year plan. Any problem with this? Again, I know I've not discussed 5-year plans. I know that. I'll discuss it. Don't worry. First 5-year plan was implemented. So even the policy was changed by the government. Industrial Development Regulation Act of 1951. Now, what were the provisions under the IDRA in 1951? Point number 1. Government of India identified certain industries. Every private sector company which is there in these industries will have to be registered with the government. Simple. They will have to be registered with the government. No option given to them. All the industries which were covered under that, now they will have to be registered. First point. Second point, requirement of permission. For every activity that the private sector was doing, now they were supposed to take the permission or the approval of the government. Right? For example, sir, what do you mean by activity here? You want to expand your production? Take the permission of the government. You want to invest 1 lakh rupees? Take the permission of the government. So the concept of regulation, concept of more regulation over the private sector was actually introduced. Okay. Third one, if the affairs of the company, if the affairs means the activities of the company were not up to the mark, the government could simply conduct an inquiry. So what do you mean by this? Right? Imagine you're producing a product. You're a private sector company. You're producing a product. But you're simply reducing your production so that scarcity gets created in the market. All of you will agree? Right? You will reduce your production, you will control your supply so that scarcity gets created in the market. You will make profits because of that. Possible or not? Is it possible or not? Of course, yes. So should Government of India allow this to continue? So government said, if you are not operating correctly, first of all, you are taking a license from me. You are not utilizing the, let's say, the license correctly. You're abusing the system. Then I'll conduct investigation against you. Right? Conduct an inquiry against such company. Now, if the company has given a wrong information to the government to get a license, imagine false data has been given to the government. Wrong information has been given to the government. Then Government of India will simply cancel the license. Right? In case of submission of the wrong data, licenses would be cancelled. Government could recommend reforms for a particular industry, and the private sector which is operating in the industry was supposed to implement the reforms. Whether you like it or you do not like it, you will have to implement these reforms. Now, what if, right, some of you will simply say, sir, what if I don't like a reform implemented by the government, right, and they want me to implement it? What is the option available to me? Government said under IDRA, no option available to you. If you do not implement the reform, I'll simply take over the management of the company. If you do not do what I say, I'll simply take over the management. Basically meaning I'll snatch away the ownership from your side. That's it, you will end up losing the ownership. Government was also having the power to regulate or control supply, control pricing of the commodities, distribution of these goods in the market. Right? So all the powers were basically concentrated in the hands of the Government of India. Concentrated in the hands of Government of India. Basically, all of this led to what? Corruption in the system, bureaucratic hurdles in the system, license Raj, permit Raj in the system. Okay. So IDRA 1951. Then came one of the most important consequential policies of the government, Industrial Policy of 1956. Very, very consequential. Why? Look at the change in the policy of the government. If you remember earlier, we divided the industries into 4 categories. And in very few of them, government had monopoly. Do you remember that? Right? In very few of them, atomic energy, railways, etc., government had monopoly. And in other sectors, either government controlling, government regulating, etc., private sector entry was allowed. But now Government of India changed the policy completely. Change the policy. Right? And please understand, this is related to, again, second 5-year plan. We'll discuss the second 5-year plan later, don't worry. This is related to second 5-year plan. Second 5-year plan came into force from 1956. So obviously 5-year, 51 to 56, second 56 to 61. Now if you remember your high school education, you will remember that second 5-year plan is known for industrialization in India. Second 5-year plan is known for industrialization, promotion of industrialization in India. But government of India decided this idea for industrialization, I will do myself. I will be driving this industrialization. How? I'll be setting up industries. Rather than allowing the private sector to set up the industries and operate, I will control these industries. That's the beauty of the second 5-year plan. So have a look at this industrial policy of 1956. Rather than having 4 categories, now the industries were divided into 3 groups: Schedule A, Schedule B, and Schedule C. Look at Schedule A. Look at Schedule A. Schedule A controlled or brought 17 industries. Right? We brought 17 industries under Schedule A. 17 industries. And most of these industries were very, very consequential, very, very important for running of the economy. Right? For example, arms, ammunition, mineral oils, steel, coal, iron, etc. All these earlier where private sector entry was allowed, now government of India started setting up industries. Right? That is Schedule A. Schedule B, or before going to Schedule B, now Schedule A, can I say this led to the growth of public sector companies in India? Let me know. This led to growth of public sector organizations in India. Public sector organizations, right? That is companies, statutory corporations, undertakings of the government of India. It led to a huge growth in the public sector, right, entities or public sector organization. And do not worry about public sector organization, how they are divided, what is the meaning of each of them. Give me some time, I'll show you the classification. Now, Schedule A, this is the outcome. Schedule B included 12 industries where government will allow the private sector to continue to operate. Private sector is there, we will allow the private sector to continue to operate. But if there is a requirement of a new unit, no more private sector entry, government will set up these industries or government will set up the new units. Examples I've given, but my recommendation, do not buy heart. List is very long. Do not buy heart everything. Schedule B. What about Schedule C? Whatever will not fall in the A and B by default will fall in the C. Is it okay? Right? Those industries which will not be covered under A and B will be covered under C. Can I give a same straightforward example? Agriculture sector. I hope you understand. Schedule C included all the remaining industries when in establishing and development of units would be undertaken by the private sector related to agriculture sector. Right? So industrial policy of 1956 is associated with growth or the burst of public sector organizations in India. It is also associated with the second 5-year plan where government of India planned for industrialization of the Indian economy. Industrialization. Okay, so this is IP 1956. Now, after this, what happened? The growth of public sector increased. Investment by the government increased. I hope you understand, because government is driving industrialization. Investment by the government increased, etc. But over a period of time, there were concerns regarding the working of the Indian economy. For example, all of these issues basically led to the situation of 1991. And what was the situation of Indian economy in 1991? For example, there was a crisis in the Gulf. There was a crisis in the Gulf. So what is this crisis in the Gulf? 2 countries in the Gulf went to war. Simple. 2 countries went to war. Right? And why this is connected to India? Some of you might simply say, sir, why should I read Gulf crisis? Why should I even remember Gulf crisis connected to India? Reason is, just like today, earlier also, we were dependent on lot of import of crude oil. Simple idea. We were dependent on import of lot of crude oil. Now, this Middle East, which is one of the very important supplier of crude oil, If there is a war in the Middle East, you tell me what will happen to price of crude oil. Prices of crude oil started going upwards. I hope you understand. Started going upwards, and we were importer. Just like today, what will happen to price of import? Price of import ballooned, right? Shot through the roof, increased abruptly for the government now. So one, that is a point. Second point, when these two countries are fighting the war like this, Indian citizens are present in these countries. I hope you understand. Indian citizens are present. They are earning, they are sending back the dollars to India. What will happen to remittances? What will happen to remittances? Automatically, the remittances will fall down. Automatically, the remittances will fall down. Can I connect it to a picture here? Don't. Even if you have not seen, don't worry. UPSC will not ask you about picture. How many of you have seen the movie Airlift? Let me know. How many of you have seen the movie Airlift? Even if you have not seen, nothing wrong with that. I hope you understand. Even if you have not seen, nothing wrong with that. Right? But if you have seen, this is exactly what I'm talking about. This is exactly what I'm talking about. So the war happened, war broke out, and as a result of this, the crude oil prices went up, and the remittances that were flowing to India dried up. Now you tell me, continuously there is an outflow of dollar. Continuously there is an outflow of dollar, but inflow of dollar is getting affected. And some of you might simply say, sir, what about other exports? Please understand this very carefully. Until 1991, Government of India did not promote exports from India. Right? When I say did not promote, unlike today, I hope you understand my point here. Unlike today, there was no such policy to promote more and more exports from India. Right? We have discussed foreign trade policy. Do you remember that? We have discussed foreign trade policy. Foreign trade policy is not implemented by the government after independence. Absolutely no. The idea of foreign trade policy was not implemented right since independence. Idea of foreign trade policy came into force post 1985 in India. Right? Because until then, right, who was driving the growth in the Indian economy? Just now we have discussed this. Until then, who was driving industrialization? Who was driving growth in the economy? Government of India. Government of India, not the private sector, government. Investment was done majorly by government, public sector. Production was done through public sector organizations. Supply was done through public sector organizations. Private sector was there, but majorly contributed by the government. So that was the precise reason. That was the precise reason why you will see the idea of a promotion of foreign trade post 1985 in India. Right? Until that, it was majorly focused on domestic growth. Right? Produce, sell, and drive the growth. Then we realized, no, that's not possible. That's not possible. Why? Even in 1970s, there was one situation where the crude oil prices shot through the roof. I hope you understand. Even before 1990, in 1970s, there was one situation where crude oil prices shot through the roof. And we were dependent. There was a pressure on forex reserve. 1960s, there was a pressure on forex reserves. 1990, much larger pressure on the forex reserves. That is, have a look at this. We were facing the BOP crisis. We were facing the BOP crisis in 1991. That is, we were about to exhaust our forex reserves. That is the reason Government of India decided, okay, we need to change the policy then. We completely need to alter the approach that we are following now. So point number one, there was a crisis in the Gulf. As a result of this, remittances went down, right? Outflow of dollars went up. And as a result of all of this, the balance of payment situation, right? We were facing BOP crisis. Next, fiscal deficit of Government of India was very, very high. Do not buy heart the data. Don't buy heart the data, because 8.4% was the peak. From one year to another year, obviously FD will change. So fiscal deficit of Government of India was very, very high. Very high, 8.4%. Right? Today itself, we are looking at the fiscal deficit of the Government of India. We are concerned. So imagine, back in 1990s, fiscal deficit FD was 8.4%. Right? That's a very high number. And don't you think if when the FD is very high, and look at the year also, 1990s, government would go for monetization of deficit? Let me know. Government would simply go for monetization of the deficit. And when government will go for monetization deficit, what will happen to inflation? What will happen to inflation? Inflation rate in the domestic market was also very high, right? It should make perfect sense to you. Crude oil prices are very high. Government is monetizing the deficit. What will happen naturally to inflation rate? Inflation rate was very high. Interest liability, right, was somewhere around 37%. Meaning what? The amount of expenditure that was incurred by the government in 1 year's budget, let's say, expenditure is incurred. Part of the expenditure is interest payment. More than 36% of the expenditure was because of the interest payment. So you can imagine to what extent borrowings were very, very high for the government. If you're paying 36% of the expenditure in the form of interest, imagine what would be the borrowing profile of the government of India. So borrowings were very high, interest liabilities were around 36%. Now, how many of you think interest, only focus on interest here. How many of you think interest is a capital expenditure? Right, I hope remember the discussion that we have had earlier. How many of you remember that interest is not a part of capital, interest payment is a part of revenue expenditure. So if 36%, that is more than 1/3 of your expenditure is because of the interest, don't you think the expenditure under capital head will be constrained, will be limited, etc.? So these were certain issues related to the situation of Indian economy by 1991. So the performance of public sector enterprises or public sector units or undertakings was also very, very poor. Many of the public sector undertakings of the government or public sector companies of the government were incurring losses. Right, so this was a situation in 1991. And to address all of these problems, government introduced a set of reforms, very famously referred to as LPG reforms: liberalization, privatization, and globalization. LPG stands for liberalization, privatization, and globalization. Right? What is this liberalization, privatization, and globalization? Let's understand them individually. Let's start with the first one, liberalization. Now, some of you generally, right, you will get confused between liberalization and privatization. Understand the concept carefully. Now, I'll give you a very simple example. Let's start with a very simple example. Industrial Policy of 1956, IP 1956. Now, is it okay if I say under IP 1956, 17 industries were reserved only for public sector? Is it okay? 17 industries were reserved only, reserved means where government will be setting up industries. What about private sector entry here? Private sector is not allowed. Can I say this is a regulation? Let me know. Can I call this as a regulation? One of the regulation of the government. Now have a look at this. Have a look at this. What if government of India says, I will not keep 17 industries for public sector, I will reduce it. I will reduce the number. In fact, in 1991 policy, this was actually reduced from 17 to 6 industries, which means now more than 10 of these, in 10 of these industries, private sector entry will be allowed. Private sector entry will be allowed. Entry of private sector is allowed. Can I call this process as a deregulation? Let me know. Can I call this process as withdrawal of or flexibility in terms of regulations which were introduced earlier by government of India? Some of the regulations which were implemented, government now is withdrawing these regulations. Is it okay or not? Can I go to the next point here? Right? Is it okay? Right? So various regulations which were implemented earlier were deregulated, were withdrawn by the government. And this process of deregulation, it is called as a liberalization. The process of deregulation means what? The regulations which were implemented by the government over a period of time, these regulations have been withdrawn by the government, right? That is basically called as a liberalization. I'll give you one more example. Right? Foreign investors earlier were not allowed to invest in the Indian stock market. Now, Government of India says that regulation will be withdrawn. As a result of this, now foreign investors are allowed to come to India, invest in the Indian market. Is it not deregulation? Think of it. Is it not deregulation? I'll give you one more example. Public sector banks so far were not allowed to issue shares in the market. Until 1991, public sector banks were not allowed to issue shares in the market. Right? Issue shares in the market. What is the meaning of it? If PSBs want capital, they were never allowed to go to the market, issue shares and raise the capital. That was not allowed. Now that regulation will be withdrawn by the government. Can I call it as a deregulation? So argument of liberalization is very simple. Certain restrictions or regulations were imposed by the government over a period of time, right? Many of these regulations now were withdrawn by the government, or basically reduced by the government. So the process of deregulating the economy, it is called as liberalization, right? It is referred to as liberalization. Now what happens in a privatization? Now look at second example and tell me if both are one and the same. Government of India, second example now. Government of India sells Air India. Is it the same as a deregulation? Think of it and let me know. Is it same as deregulation? No, my dear, it's not same. Why? Private sector is already present in the civil aviation market. I hope you understand. Private sector, it is already present in the civil aviation market. Right? Have you not heard of SpiceJet? Right? Vistara, Indigo, all these are private sector companies. So private sector companies are already present. It is deregulated already. Now government is present. Government will sell away the ownership of the company. That is the privatization. That is the basic idea of a privatization. Both are different. Do not be confused. Liberalization, regulations will be withdrawn. Privatization, assets which are owned by the government are being sold. Right? Two different concepts. So examples of liberalization in industrial sector. I told you some time ago, in industrial sector, earlier most of the industries were brought under the monopoly of Government of India, under the complete control of Government of India. Now it was reduced. Right? It was reduced to 6. Over a period of time, it has been reduced. Today, remember this, atomic energy. Today, atomic energy, anything to do with atomic energy, this is the only industry which is under the complete control of the government. Complete control. Atomic energy, it is under the complete control of the Government of India. What about railways? Let me know. Railways, some of you are saying, sir, railways. Some of you, right? Think of it and tell me. That is where you'll have to read current affairs. Railways, is private sector entry allowed in railways? Private sector entry, is it allowed in the railways? Answer is yes. Answer is yes, private sector entry is allowed. We'll discuss that. Many of the routes in India, private sector is allowed to operate the routes. It is allowed. Right? So I hope you understand this. Right? So private sector is allowed in the railways. So it is the atomic energy where complete control is with the government. Many of these industries now have been opened up for the private sector participation. Okay, right? Apart from this, earlier, have a look at this. We'll come to this again also, but anyways, since I've written it, the Government of India earlier had a policy of reserving certain products to be manufactured only by MSMEs. Have a look at the point here. Earlier, Government of India had this policy of reserving the products which were manufactured only by MSME. Sir, why was the policy implemented? You tell me, MSME, can they compete with larger companies? You have seen the definition of MSME. You tell me, right? If an MSME manufactures this pen, Tata also manufactures this pen. Do you think both of them can compete with each other? The company Tata will basically trample the other company and force it to shut down. So what government of India did was, they introduced the concept of reserved products. At one point of time, more than 600, 800 products were reserved only to be manufactured by MSMEs. Right? Other companies, larger companies were not allowed to manufacture them. That way, we protected MSMEs. But how many of you think this is the right approach to promote MSME sector? Think of it and answer. How many of you believe that this is the right approach to protect and promote MSME sector in India? No, this is not the right approach. Why? I'll tell you. Right? Imagine you're a manufacturer. Okay, imagine you're a manufacturer, you're manufacturing this pen, and other larger companies will not be allowed to manufacture this pen. Will you invest more and more, purchase better technology? Will you become more competitive if I'm protecting you from competition? Basic idea, right? No, you will not do that. You will not be focused on that. Why? You know there will be no competitor from large companies which will come to compete with you. That is the precise reason. That's a precise reason what we have done today. Do we have the idea for reservation for MSMEs today? No. We do not have the policy of reservation of the goods for MSME. We have de-reserved. Earlier, MSMEs were referred to as SSI. Some of you will simply say, sir, you're writing MSME or you're written SSI, but you're using term MSME. Earlier, we had a classification called as small scale industry. Small scale industries, SSIs. Today, we have brought all of them under the concept of MSME, micro, small, medium enterprises. So some of the goods which were reserved for SSI have been de-reserved, right? These regulations have been withdrawn. What about financial sector? Banks were allowed to go to the market, issue shares and raise capital. Foreign investors were allowed to come into India, invest in the stock market. Right? Private sector, foreign banks were allowed to come into India, set up banks in India. So whatever regulations were there in the financial market like this, these regulations also have been withdrawn. Taxation reforms. Earlier, understand this, right? The tax was much more complicated. Taxation structure was very much complicated. Government of India set up a committee, and based on the recommendations of a committee, right? Sir, what is the name of the committee? Rajachalia Committee. Rajachalia Committee. Rajachalia Committee, and based on the recommendations of the Rajachalia Committee, we have simplified the taxation structure. We have simplified the taxation in a much better way now, right? So taxation reforms were implemented. Foreign exchange reforms were implemented. Do you remember? We implemented LERMS. 92, 93, we implemented LERMS. Later, we shifted to floating exchange rate. Market determined the floating exchange rate, right? Is it not promoting more and more better methodology, withdrawing the regulation, right? Implementing a better methodology to determine exchange rate. Rupee was devalued by the government in 91 and 92, and after that, we have shifted to floating exchange rate. Trade policy. Import licensing was abolished, removal of export duties. Right? Please understand, I told you some time ago, before 1985, in fact, it is like this, before 1985, we did not have a foreign trade policy. Why? It was basically a policy of inward-looking policy. Remember the term, inward-looking policy. What do you mean inward-looking policy? Will promote growth by promoting industrialization and consumption within India. Will promote growth. But now understand this carefully. If you want to promote industrialization, you will require imports. All of you will agree. You will require imports. And if you import, you will require dollars. So now understand the logic here. Right? Understand the logic. Government of India before 1985 used to have this policy. One, we will try to replace imports. You require imports. But if you import, you will have to pay in dollars. We don't have dollars. So what we will do is, one, we will try to replace imports. What do you mean by replacing import? Please have a look at this example. Rather than importing this marker, what if I produce the marker in India? Let me know. What if rather than importing the marker, I produce this marker in India? Will I be importing this marker later? Do I require to import this marker? Of course no. This is called as import substitution. I hope you understand. This is called as import substitution. I will produce in the domestic market rather than importing. I will procure from the domestic market itself. So import automatically will come down. But how many of you believe import substitution is the right approach? Think of it. Think of it. How many of you believe import substitution is a right approach? Right? Even today, think of it, even today. For example, solar panels. Do we have competitive manufacturers in India? Do we have competitive manufacturers in India? Import substitution will work out only when you have very good producers in the domestic market. But in all the sectors, we don't have that ability, right? Even today, and you are talking about 1990s, you are talking about 1970s, etc., etc. That is the precise reason we have the policy, right? For example, today government of India says Atmanirbhar, right? Atmanirbhar policy, self-reliance policy. It's not the first time. It's not the first time that the government is talking about self-reliance. Under planning, we already have used the idea for self-reliance. But right, not a very good policy in the past, but today's policy is completely different. Right? Don't come to a conclusion based on the past. Do not come to a conclusion even this is bad. Absolutely no. Earlier, the structure of Indian economy is completely different. Private sector participation very limited. Government incentivizing private sector very limited. Today, do you think it is the same thing? Today, do you think it's the same thing? If you look at the overall investment in the Indian economy today, right, a large chunk of the investment, generally more than 50% of investment comes from the private sector. Right? Earlier, before 1991, public sector. So the structure of Indian economy is different. Obviously, the outcomes will be different. Right? So argument is simple here. Foreign trade policy was implemented henceforth. 1985, for the first time, we implemented foreign trade policy, but only for 3 years. But after 1991, we started having a practice of 5-year policies. 5-year policies after 1991. Right? So under that, import licensing was abolished. That is, to import all these products, you don't require a license. Only some of them you require a license. So abolition of import licensing. Promote more and more exports so that you will have sufficient forex reserves. Removal of export duties. Right? So these are basically some of the deregulation reforms which were implemented by the government under the head of liberalization. What about privatization? What do you mean by privatization? Have a look at this. Privatization simply means ownership of the government in the entities. Right? The government has certain entities under its ownership. So the government's ownership will be reduced. The ownership of the government in these entities will be reduced. And as a result of this, what can you generally observe? Whenever a government will follow a policy of privatization, what can you observe? One, public sector will start contracting. Is it okay? Public sector will start contracting. Right? That is, presence of the public sector will start coming down. Do you think the same thing will happen in liberalization? Think of it. In liberalization, government is present, government will allow the private sector to operate. Right? No, you will not see the contraction. But in privatization, if government of India will sell away the ownership, privatization, that's exactly what happens. Sell away the ownership, will the public sector contract or not? Public sector will contract. So contraction of the public sector, disinvestment, I'll come to this. Disinvestment policy is followed by the government. Increased participation of the private sector. Competition between the private sector will be promoted. Now, when you say government entities, right, where do you find disinvestment done by the government? Look at the structure. Please look at the structure. Some of you will get confused when you read about these in the newspapers. Understand it very carefully. Now, when I say Ministry of Railways, let me start with an example. When I say Ministry of Railways, can I simply say Ministry of Railways is part of Government of India? Right? Understand this. Can I say Ministry of Railways is a part of Government of India? It's not a separate entity. It is just a part and parcel of Government of India. Who will basically oversee the implementation of railway policy? Ministry of Railways. But who is heading the Ministry of Railways? Railway Minister. Railway Minister is a minister for the government, or under the government there is a ministers like this. One of the minister is Railway Minister. What about the finances of the railways? Is it provided independently? Independently in the sense, is there autonomy in the operation of Ministry of Railways? Autonomy means, is it working independent of Government of India? Absolutely no autonomy. Tomorrow if Prime Minister will call up Railway Minister and say, introduce this policy, they will have to do that. Right? The Prime Minister will simply call up and say, replace this policy. The minister better do that, or else generally you will see minister getting replaced. So the argument is simple here. One form of a government organization is, right, a departmental undertaking. What do you mean by departmental undertaking? I'm using the term departmental undertaking. You can also say ministerial undertaking. A department or a ministry which is part of the government will be controlling certain sectors or industries. Simple. It is responsible for the industry. It is responsible for implementation of the industry. Right? Best example for this is Department of Post and Ministry of Railways. Come to the extreme side of this. Extreme, opposite, exactly opposite of this. Government companies. Government companies. What is a government company? These are established under Companies Act. These are established under Companies Act. Right? Companies Act of either 1956 or Companies Act of 2013. Example, let me start with an example here. Coal India Limited. CIL, Coal India Limited. And what about the second one? Steel Authority of India Limited. Now compare between, I'll write a number here, compare between 1 and 3. Compare between 1 and 3 and tell me, is it okay if I say in 1, it is part of the government, it is part of the government, and number 3, it is a particular company where majority of the ownership is with the government. Any problem with this? I'll repeat it again. Number 1, it is basically part of the government, part and parcel of the government. And what is this number 3? These are established under Companies Act. So they have independent recognition. All of you will agree? Let me know. These have independent recognition in the market. Coal India Limited is different. Government of India is different. Whereas, how many of you will say Ministry of Railways is different, Government of India is different? Can I say Ministry of Railways is a part of Government of India? Part of Government of India. Right? Whereas in case of government company, at least 51% of ownership of the company is with the Government of India. At least 51% is with the ownership of the company is with Government of India. Here, part and parcel of the government. There is no concept of ownership. Government of India, right? Under Government of India, these are there. Second, these are established under Companies Act. What about departmental undertaking? Is there any act for Ministry of Railways? And let me know. Is there any constitutional provision which says a Ministry of Railways has to be set up? Absolutely no. Absolutely no. There is no legal backing to this. These are the ministries which are created by the government. And let me know, can Government of India tomorrow abolish Ministry of Railways? Possible or not? Again, they will not do that. Don't panic and start typing, hey, this faculty is saying like this. Is it possible or not? That's what I'm asking. Is it possible or not? Of course it is possible. Can they take Ministry of Railways, merge it, keep it under Ministry of Home Affairs? Possible or not? Just think of possibilities. Okay, I'm not saying they will do that. Yes, it is possible. Whereas Companies Act, don't you think it will provide a legal recognition to these companies? These are independent. These are autonomous. At least on paper, these are autonomous. Right? Why I'm saying at least on paper it is autonomous? Think of this very carefully. Imagine there is a government company. I hope you understand. Imagine there's a government company. At least on paper, I'll say it is autonomous. if there is a government company which is wherein government of India has let's say 98% of ownership, where government of India has 98% ownership, you tell me who is driving the decision making of these companies. I hope you understand, right? At least on paper we say these are autonomous, these are independent, but there's a problem in this also. There's a problem, that is, if government has majority of ownership, that is let's say 98%, 99%, or let's say 99.999%, the decision making is driven by the government. But at least is it okay if I say compared to 1 in 3, interference of the government is lower, right? Compare between 1 and 3. I'm saying in case of 3, interference, that is authority of the government, in 3 it is comparatively lower. Why? Here it is a government company where government has at least 51% ownership, but the setup of the company, operations of the company, right, the behavior of the company, everything is dictated by the provisions of the Companies Act. Everything is dictated under the provisions of the Companies Act of 2013. Right now, there is a middle ground between 1 and 3. There is a middle ground, that is public corporation. These are also referred to as statutory undertakings, statutory corporations, public corporation. I'll start with an example: Food Corporation of India and NABFID. Do you remember NABFID? National Bank for Financing Infrastructure Development. Food Corporation of India. Both of them have been established with the passage of Act of the Government of India. I'll repeat it. What do you mean by statutory corporations? Government of India introduced the bill, got the bill passed, and as a result of this passage of the bill, which became an act, we have set up an authority, Food Corporation of India and NABFID. Now, can I simply say it is a middle ground between 1 and 3? Let me know. It is basically a middle ground between 1 and 3, right? What do you mean by middle ground? Is it part of the government, right? For example, Food Corporation of India. Is it part of the government of India? Part in the sense, is it part of the ministries? No, it is not part of the ministries. Is it part of the department? Again, no. It is an entity. It is basically an entity which has been set up by the government, which will undertake certain activities as per the provisions of FCI Act, which will act as per the provisions given in the FCI Act. Right? If Government of India wants to change the activities of FCI, can I say that first they will have to amend FCI Act? Just like RBI, by the way. I hope you understand. Just like RBI. If Government of India wants FCI to do something, right, increase its activities, introduce one more activity, can they do it just like this? Absolutely no. First, they will have to amend FCI Act. What about the people who are appointed for FCI? There is a process which is given in the FCI Act. Right? What is the tenure of the chairman? Again given in the FCI Act. What are the functions of FCI? It is given in the FCI Act. So everything comes from the Act. Hence, this is called as a statutory corporation. Hence, this is called as a statutory corporation. Now, how many of you think, right, you can own, I can own shares in the statutory corporation? Let me know. How many of you think that, right, you or I can own, right, shares in the FCI? Can we own shares in the NABFID? No. Right? Why? These have been set up under the Act of the Government of India. Later, right, once they are shifted to a government company, that is, they are registered under the Companies Act, now these companies' shares can be sold in the market. These companies' shares can be sold in the market. Can I give you a current affairs example? Life Insurance Corporation. LIC. Life Insurance Corporation. For example, let's say 5 years ago. LIC. In case of LIC, let's say 3 years ago. Right? How many of you think the shares of LIC were present in the stock market? Think of it and answer. Right? 3 years ago or 5 years ago, how many of you think shares of LIC were present in the stock market? No. LIC shares were not there. Last year itself, IPO of LIC was conducted. And certain percentage, very, very small percentage of the shares were released or were sold under the IPO. Now, LIC is a listed company. It will come under government companies. right? That's a basic idea. Departmental undertaking, public corporation, right, and government companies. Now, right, how disinvestment can be conducted? How disinvestment can be conducted? First one is a minority sale. Minority sale means what? Government will sell certain shares but will continue to own more than 51%. That's simple idea. Government will sell the shares of the company, and right, even then will continue to own at least 51% shares in the company, right? That is a minority stake sale. Sir, why 51% is important? 51% means majority ownership. Anybody who has more than 51% can take most of the decisions of the company. That's the reason government, under the minority stake sale, minority disinvestment, will sell certain amount but will continue to own at least 51%. Now, can I give you an example related to this? What about CPSE ETF? In fact, if you have read the newspaper Friday, like I told you, this was mentioned. If you have not read, please go back now, read that article. Disinvestment means what? Selling ownership of a government owned company. Now, when I say selling the ownership, government can sell 2% ownership, government can sell 5% ownership, government can sell 50% ownership or 100% ownership. That's the reason whenever you say minority stake sale, government will sell certain shares but will continue to own at least 51%. What about strategic stake sale? Whenever you talk about strategic stake sale, government ownership will fall and government will give away the management control. Government ownership will come down. For example, let's say government will sell, right, 76% ownership in a company. I'll give you an example. Air India, right? Understand this carefully. Air India, today it has been completely privatized. Today, Air India has been completely privatized. Complete means what? 100%. But before selling 100%, Government of India had put forward a proposal. GOI had put forward one proposal that Government of India will simply sell 76% ownership, also give away the management control over the company. And when you sell 76%, automatically you will give away the management control. Automatically you will give away the management control. Now, can I simply say this is a type of a strategic ownership? I hope you understand. This is a type of a strategic disinvestment. Strategic disinvestment means generally government will give away more than 51%. Ownership will fall below 51%, and the government will give away the management control of the company. But extreme case in this, extreme case under the strategic is 100% privatization. 100% privatization. 100% privatization means what? Government will not have any ownership. In case of strategic, imagine Air India's 76% was given away. In fact, it was actually 74%. Imagine Air India's 76% was given away, which means what? Even after giving away the management control, government will have certain ownership. But in case of complete privatization, 100% disinvestment, what will happen? Government will simply give away 100% ownership. Government will not even own a single share in the company. Complete privatization. Any example of this? Most recent, Air India. Maruti company, earlier it was owned by Government of India. Modern Foods, etc. Now there is one more structure which is called as a cross-holding. Last concept, we will stop after this. Cross-holding. What is this idea of a cross-holding? Follow this carefully. Follow first. Imagine there is a company A owned by the government. Company A owned by the government. Company B again owned by the government. Both of them are owned by the government itself. What the government will do is, they will sell company B to company A. I will repeat it. They will sell company B owned by them to another company A, which is again owned by them. Right? And now after the sales is done, can I write the structure like this? Can I write a structure like this? Government owns company A, which owns company B. Don't say both are one and the same. Absolutely no. This structure is different. This structure is different. This is called as a cross holding. Whenever you move from example 1 to example 2, this is called as a cross holding. Right? Another company which is owned by the government owns one more company which was earlier owned by the government. This is called as cross holding. Sir, why does the government do this? Government wants to earn money. Government wants to earn money. So if B is owned by the government, B will be sold to A. Can I say A will pay money to Government of India? I hope you understand this. A will purchase company B, and when they are purchasing, they will have to pay money. So government will be able to generate money. And point number 2, have a look at this. Point number 2, even after cross holding, can I say Government of India has indirect control over the company B? Not direct, indirect. And what if it's a company which is very important for Government of India? For example, there is one example that I've written here, Rural Electrification Corporation. REC was owned by the government, sold it to one more company, PFC, Power Finance Corporation, again owned by the government. Don't you think rural electrification is very important for the government? When I take a power sector, there's a scheme, Pradhana Mantri, there's a scheme, electrification, rural electrification, household electrification. I'll show you that, don't worry. REC, Rural Electrification Corporation, is the nodal agency for it. That is basically the idea. Okay, so government doesn't want to give away the ownership, will continue to own the company now indirectly. That is basically the idea of a cross holding. Done. So this is how Government of India will conduct a complete privatization or minority stake sale, and basically the methods under the disinvestment. Okay, now let me stop here. Tomorrow we'll continue from here. Tomorrow we'll continue from here, right? So what will the government do when they will conduct this disinvestment, how the funds are used, latest policy of disinvestment, right? National infrastructure pipeline, national monetization pipeline, etc. Now, before I wind up, any questions that you people have, let me know now. Only sticking to Hindu and Indian Express, will it suffice for GS3 economic current affairs portion? My recommendation is more than, right? If you can read all the articles in Hindu and Indian Express, it should be more than sufficient. But sometimes you would require more resources also. For example, Yojana, Kurukshetra, etc. You'll require more resources. Okay, done. How will government get money in case of cross holding? Right? I hope you understand. Companies have different independent recognition. Steel Authority of India, it is not a government party, it is not part of the government, it is owned by the government, it is not government. I hope you understand, right? For example, the railways, IAS officers will be there in the railways, right? Government employees are there in the railways, right? So I hope you understand the difference between both of them. So whenever one company will be sold to another company, the buying company will pay money. It is as good as a transaction. Okay. Okay, any other question? CPSE ETF, Central Public Sector Enterprises ETF. We have discussed that there are certain shares of these 12 CPSEs. They have been clubbed, and this will be sold in the form of ETF, exchange traded fund in the market, bought and sold in the market. Industrial sector, point to which slide? You tell me. Industrial sector, point to. I don't understand which slide you are talking about. Okay, industries reserved for PSCs were reduced. My dear, is it not written here itself? 17 industries were reserved only for public sector. Now the list has been reduced. Is it Saubhagya scheme for rural electrification? Yes. Pradhana Mantri Saubhagya scheme. Sahaj Bijli Har Ghar Yojana. Example of minority investments. In most of these PSCs that you can see, it is minority disinvestment only. Best example is CPSE ETF. Okay. Any other doubt? Does MSP also depend on quality of a product? From one crop variety to another crop variety, the MSP will change. Okay, done then. We'll stop the discussion today here. We'll continue with the discussion from this slide tomorrow. That is government companies, how the disinvestment, once it is conducted, how the funds are used. We'll start from this slide tomorrow. Okay. So that's it from my side for today. We'll stop the discussion now. We'll continue the discussion tomorrow. Have a great day ahead. Right. Take care.